cold sits low in the yard, and thin frost shows on each stone, a quiet rim of white that makes the ground look neat and still. You hold the broom with both hands and feel the wood handle, smooth from years of use, a little rough where a knot shows. Your breath makes a faint cloud in the dim air, not large, not important, just there. The same way old straw smells clean after a hard freeze. You lower the broom and begin to sweep, slow and steady, and the bristles whisper across grit in an easy line that calms the body and sets the mind straight for night work. You move along the wall first, where dust gathers in a thin seam and frost sits like fine salt. Wool cloth rubs your wrists where the sleeves meet your palms, and the cuff keeps in enough heat to help your fingers work. A lamp on a bracket gives soft light, not bright, but steady, with a thin smell of oil and a hint of smoke near the iron hook. Somewhere past the gate a neighbor coughs once and settles again, far enough to stay at the edge of your hearing. The broom keeps its low whisper across the stone, a sound so small it feels like the yard itself is breathing for you. You cross to the reed stack by the shed and brush away chaff that the wind pushed into a corner. The reed ends are pale and stiff with frost. Your glove takes on the smell of wet stalk and cold water. A shallow bowl on the ledge shows a film of ice with sand specks caught inside it. You rub the bowl with a cloth and set it upright to dry. The broom's straw tips move over the stones, and the whisper returns, steady as wool on wood. Under the floor, a rat shifts through husks with a dry rustle, quick and then gone. Like a thought you choose not to hold, you work the center strip last, drawing lines that meet in a neat row so you can lift the piles into a basket. Small stones tick under the straw and settle, and dust rises with a faint smell like clay after rain, though this is winter and there is no rain. The handle is firm in your hands. The grain of the wood feels simple and right, as sure as rope around a bundle. Your mouth holds the taste of old tea from earlier, and a trace of smoke that never fully leaves this courtyard. The whisper of bristles slides on, soft and even, and you find a pace that asks nothing more than the next stroke. You pause by the water jar and tilt it to check the level, careful with the weight. A thin rind of ice clings to the rim and crunches when it meets the lip. You break it with a stick and watch the clear water settle again. The jar smells faintly of clay, and the stick leaves a wet circle on your glove that cools the skin beneath. Close by, a coil of rope keeps its shape on the ground. It holds tiny beads of frost like white grain. You sweep around it so the fibers stay clean, and the whisper of the broom folds back into the yard as if it belongs there more than anywhere else. You gather the sweepings into a shallow pan and tip them into the ash pit near the wall. The ashes are cold, pale, and light, and they carry the smell of last night's fire, a quiet, woody scent that sits low and does not press the nose. A faint draft moves across the floor stones and brushes your cheek. From inside the house, a sibling turns on a mat and mutters, then stills. Sleep holds there like a blanket. You return to the yard and set the pan down, and the broom finds the ground with that same faint, patient whisper, as if it knows more than one way to say hush. You take a small break by the brazier, where ember heat hides under a thin layer of gray. You lift a lid, stir the base with an iron, and the warmth rises in a slow curl you can feel on your knuckles. You pull a piece of dry bread from a cloth and chew. It tastes simple and a little salty, with a hint of smoke it has picked up from the air. The crust is firm, and the heat from the brazier softens the bite. The broom leans against the wall where you left it, and even resting it looks ready to keep its old work and its old sound. The broom seems older than you and keeps its own slow pace. You do not argue. You check the ladder that runs up to the platform and test each rung with your palm, not climbing, only making sure the shape holds and the wood stays sound. The grain is dry and honest, and a smear of frost along one edge slicks under your glove. A rope ties the ladder to a beam so it cannot slip, its fibers hard and cold under your hand, with a faint plant smell that never quite leaves hemp. You brush the frost from the first rung so the morning does not make it slick again. Then go back to the ground where the work waits in the corners. The broom answers at once with that small, even whisper, the yard's quiet line of music. You shift to the gate and sweep the threshold stones, the ones that take the most grit. Your shoulders feel the pull and then ease, and your breath stays slow inside your chest, steady without thought. The wood of the gate smells of resin and old sun, even in winter, and the bar is smooth where hands have lifted it for years. Far off toward the river, a boat rope answers the tide with a faint rub, and the sound finds you and sits beside the broom's gentle hush. You clear the slot where the bar drops, you clear the groove where the gate slides, and you brush straw from the sill so the line reads clean. You circle the wellhead and brush the ring of stone that always seems to gather a collar of dust. The rope over the bucket wheel is stiff with cold. You lift it once and let it rest so the fibers do not freeze into a bend. The air around the well tastes slightly mineral, like wet sand, and your sleeve picks up the smell of damp wood from the curb. Behind the shed, a goat noses old hay, and the soft scrape of horn on plank shows through the wall. You roll the basket a little closer as you finish, and the broom keeps its soft voice on the stones, even when your arm grows tired. You walk, back to the lamp and trim the wick. The flame steadies and lowers, kind, and the metal warms a little under your touch. The lamp gives a thin hiss that you barely notice most nights, yet in this cold air it feels like company. You turn and sweep the last strip by the bench where tools wait. A brush, a short rake, a wooden scoop, a folded cloth. The smell here is mild and mixed. Oil from the lamp, straw from the broom, wool from your coat, a memory of cooked grain from the kitchen. The bristles whisper one more line across grit, and the pile gathers itself the way water finds a low place and stays. You tie the basket shut with a loop of twine and carry it to the shed. The twine scratches your fingers in a friendly way, not sharp, just there, and the knot holds without fuss. You set the basket beside a stack of wood and see the grain lines in each split piece, years shown as rings that need no words. Dust floats in the lamplight and settles again, as if the air also knows this task and takes part in it. From the street, a cartwheel rolls past with a slow crunch over frost, and then quiet returns, easy as a cloak set back on its peg. The broom, when you pick it up again, finds its place without search, and the soft whisper starts up as if it had only paused to draw one small circle. You finish at the far corner where the wall meets the stair, a place that hides grit no matter how careful you are. Your knees feel the stone through your trousers when you lean in, and the cold there is deeper, the kind that keeps to shade and waits. You slide the straw tips along the line and bring out what the corner held: sand, thread, a chip of tile, a curl of old reed. Your nose catches a light smell of lime from mortar. Your tongue holds the dry taste of the air. You straighten and feel the coat settle against your back, and the broom's hush runs one more calm path across the floor you have made ready. You stand for a moment with the broom in both hands and look over the yard. The stones look even now, their edges clean, their faces pale with frost where the light touches them. The lamp throws a circle on the ground that reaches the base of the ladder and the edge of the well. Smoke from the brazier is almost gone. What remains is a thin thread that does not try for height, only for a place to rest. Inside, someone turns again and is quiet. Near the gate, the world holds still. The broom's whisper has left the stones, yet it feels close, like a sound that has settled into the wood and will be there when you need it. You carry the broom to the wall and set it on the peg, straw down, handle nested in the groove worn by years. The wood answers your palm in the way old tools do, simple and sure. You fold the cloth that kept your bread and slip it into your coat, and the faint salt taste stays on your tongue. You touch the rope at the ladder knot once more, not to test, only to know it is safe, and the fibers scrape softly against your glove. The lamp hiss turns small as you shade it with your hand, and you let the yard hold its low light. You take a last look at the stones that will carry your feet tonight, each one a small part in a plain order that does not need praise. The smell in the air is clean and cold, with smoke and straw and the faintest trace of pine from the gate beam. The well rope hangs still. The water jar is closed. The basket waits where it should. From far down the lane, a watchman's staff meets wood once, and then nothing more. You lift the broom again, only to set it better, and the bristles answer your touch with one last soft whisper across the peg, thin as a thread. The yard is ready. You can feel it in your hands and in the easy weight across your shoulders. The cold has settled into a kind that lets the skin know its edge and then stop speaking. The small sounds reach their places and keep there. The lamp hiss, the slow rasp of your coat when you turn, the goat's quiet nudge behind the wall. The sweep is done. The stones hold their frost along the seams, neat and even. The broom rests, and the low hush it made seems to live in the ground now. A faint, steady thing that lingers in the clean winter air. Cold sits neatly in the yard you cleaned, and frost still rings the stones like thin chalk. You lift the reed knives from their cloth and feel the weight settle into your palm, light but sure, wood warm from the house. The lamp near the door gives one soft hiss. Oil smells mild and calm. You fold a spare cloth into your belt, tie a short rope around the basket rim, and carry it toward the gate. The iron bar is cool and smooth. When you set the latch back into place, a knife clicks once against its wooden sheath, the tiny sound that marks the start of this simple work. The lane holds quiet air and hard ground. Frost brightens cart marks. Your shoes brush grit, and the smell of smoke from a late fire hangs low and gentle. Far off, a boat rope answers the slow pull of water with a thin rub, and a neighbor coughs once and settles again. You walk toward the canal with the basket against your hip. The rope handle presses a steady line into your glove. The sky is pale over roof lines. The morning keeps its slow gray color. A last strand of straw clings to your coat and carries that clean, cold scent from the yard. At the canal bank, you lean to watch the water. It moves dark and even, with a light skin of ice near the edge that cracks in little sheets and drifts under the reeds. The stalks stand straight and silver at the tips. The frost makes each one look edged in fine salt. You set the basket on a flat stone and kneel on a folded cloth so the cold does not bite through. Mud smells sweet and green here. It is the clean smell of wet grass and old water. When you slide your hand around a stalk, the skin of your fingers tells the smooth, cool rind, and that simple touch clears the mind. You hold the knife low and cut near the base. The blade moves without drag, and the reed comes free with a quiet hush. Sap beads at the cut and carries that same green scent, a little sharper now that it is open to air. You lay the stem across your knee and trim the joint. The knife clicks once as you set it across the wood of the basket rim, a small, steady mark of time. The bundle begins with 5 clean lengths, then 10. You tie them loosely with cord so they do not fall. The knot pulls tight without struggle. The rope fibers feel firm and honest under your thumb. A fisherman passes on the far path and does not break the quiet. His boat rope drags along a worn post and makes it slow rub again. A gray bird lifts from the bank and settles in a willow. You keep to your work with even hands. You watch the light change by small degrees on the water and on the reed tips. Your coat warms at the shoulders as you bend and rise in a calm rhythm. Your tongue holds the faint taste of last night's tea, and you do not mind it. The knife rests when it should and clicks once when it meets the basket rim. You sort the cut lengths on the cloth, steady and plain, long pieces to one side, shorter pieces to another. You brush sand and seed from the leaves and let the waste fall back to the bank. A rat moves under the roots with a dry rustle. It keeps to its path, and you keep to yours. You lift a straight piece and measure it against your forearm, then set it with its match. The smell of reed sap stays on your hands, green and clean, with a little river cold in it. You wipe your palms on the cloth and feel the weave against your skin. You work along the bank until the basket grows full. The rope handle groans a little as the weight settles, a sound like a low cord stretched across a room. You add one more bundle and stop at enough. The knife clicks once as you slide it into the wooden sleeve. The sound is small and sure, a button on the moment. You drink a mouthful of water from a gourd and taste clay and cool air. The frost on the stone where you knelt has melted to a dark patch. The boat rope rub comes again and then fades into the slow water. Carrying the basket home takes no hurry. You hold it close and let the weight find its place. The lane smells of wood smoke and cold earth. A dog turns twice near a door and lies down with a soft scratch of nails on old wood. The gate beam is cold under your palm when you lift it back into place. You lean the basket against the wall just inside the yard and shut the latch so it will not swing. Inside the house, a sibling mutters in sleep and a mat sighs. The lamp keeps its thin hiss. You feel the quiet of the yard settle into your coat again. You spread a cloth on the flat stones near the stair and pour the reeds into a neat pile. The pile makes a sound like dry rain, small and kind. You bring a low bowl and fill it with sand from the corner jar. The sand is pale and clean and smells faintly of dust, warmed by old sun. You place 2 stones on the cloth edges so the wind cannot lift them. The brazier under the eaves holds a slow coal, dull and helpful. A little heat rises and warms the fingers enough to keep them working. You hold the knife and listen for that tiny click as you set it down and pick it up. Trimming begins with ends. You hold each reed against a wood rule and cut to the span you use for markers. The knife answers smooth and obedient. The cut rings clear for a heartbeat, and then the yard is quiet again. You collect the short offcuts in a small heap for kindling. Each marker goes to its place on the ground grid. North side first, then east, then the inner lines. You tie a thin rope between 2 stones and watch the straightness find itself. You brush dust from the line with the back of your hand and keep the sand even with a wooden scoop. The smell of smoke from the brazier and the clean reed sap sit together in the air without fight. You carry another set of markers to the far line and settle them with care. The ground is firm after frost. The sand takes the weight and holds still. You press a finger at each cut end to seat it and feel the small give of the earth under the layer. You fold the spare cloth and put it under your knee when you lean closer. The lamp throws a soft circle on stone and reed and rope. The color is warm and low. You can taste a thin dust from the sand where it rose and sat down again. The knife clicks once and you hear it clearly. Then it is gone and the hush returns. A brief mouthful of bread steadies the hands. You break a small piece, hold it near the brazier for a moment, and eat. It is dry and a little salty and carries a trace of smoke from the air. The simple food wakes the tongue and keeps the back straight. You sip water and set the bowl aside. You wipe crumbs from your fingers and do not waste any. The knife clicks once against the basket rim as you set it down. The old sound that fits this yard as naturally as frost fits stone. You work along the inner grid and the lines start to read with a quiet order. Stems stand like short posts, simple and clear. Each one a place for a small mark later. Each one a piece of rhythm the eye can follow. A goat shifts behind the shed and scrapes horn on wood once. A neighbor's door opens and closes. The boat rope sound barely reaches you now, only a thought of water moving where you cannot see it. You brush loose dust from the stones and feel the fine grit under your palm. The cloth under your knee grows warm, then cool again when you change sides. In one corner you try 3 marks and do not like the spacing. You pull them and smooth the sand with your palm, then press them back with a gentle hand. The correction is small and clean. The smell of reed sap rises again when the cut ends touch. A thin line of smoke draws up the eave and finds its way out to the pale sky. You carry the offcuts to the brazier and set a few aside to dry. You hold the knife and fit it into its sleeve. It clicks once, the same soft sound as at the canal, and you let that note fold into the yard like a small seam in cloth. When the grid is set, you look and then you look again, not to judge, only to know the lines by heart. Rope stays tight between the corner stones. Markers stand even. Sand sits smooth, and the stone paths remain clear where feet must pass. You fold the spread cloth, brush it once to send off the last dust, and carry it inside to hang. Your hands keep the green smell of the reeds, and the skin on your fingers holds the memory of their cool sides. You wash in a small bowl, and the water turns faintly cloudy with sap and sand. The bowl is heavy when you lift it. Good weight. Honest weight. You return to the yard and gather the knife, the rule, the scoop, the stones from the cloth corners. You set each tool in its place on the bench. Wood with wood. Iron with iron. Cloth folded square. You carry the basket to the wall and tie the rope handle to a peg so it will not slide. Inside, a spoon meets a pot with one soft ring, and then the house is still. The lamp keeps its thin hiss, and the brazier gives a slow coil of warmth. You watch the grid once more, and feel it settle as part of the ground, calm and ready. What is left of the morning holds even light. You taste a last crumb of bread, and swallow the clean, dry flavor. You smell smoke and reed and cold stone. The yard feels steady under your shoes, and the air seems to wait without demand. You lift the knife one more time only to check the edge with your thumb, then slide it home. It clicks once, tiny and firm, and that small note lingers like a mark on silk. The rope at the corner stays straight. The water behind the wall moves where you cannot hear it. The grid stands quiet on sand and stone, simple as a breath held in the chest and then forgotten by the world. The grid you set in the yard holds quiet lines on sand and stone, and the cold hangs steady near the gate. You carry your basket inside and fold the cloth that kept the reeds clean, then lay out the low table by the wall. The lamp on its hook gives a thin hiss and warms a thumb-wide patch of air. Wood under your palms feels smooth from long use. Dust lies in a soft ring around the base of the bowl, where you left a little water earlier. You settle on the mat and draw the inkstone close, a simple weight that fits the hand and asks for patience more than skill. You lift the gourd and let winter water fall in 2 slow drops into the inkstone's shallow well. The water sits clear on dark stone and shows the lamp's small light as a pale coin. You take the inkstick from its cloth and hold the dry bar like a dear tool, light in the fingers, faint with a woody smell that calms the head. You angle the stick and circle it on the wetted face. Soft grain meets stone, and a low sound begins, not harsh, not loud, like fine sand rolled under a shell. The room answers with stillness, and the hiss of the lamp takes one quiet step back. You circle again and keep the wrist loose. Water darkens, then thickens into slow black. The stone's rim feels cool under your other hand, and the rough edge gives you something honest to hold. Your sleeves brush your skin and trap enough warmth to let joints move without bite. The air tastes faintly of oil and old smoke. A neighbor coughs once beyond the wall. The soft grain on stone goes on, even and level, as if time itself has chosen to move by this sound for a while. You lay a folded cloth under your left elbow so the table does not take your heat, then set a small bowl near the well to catch the first rich ink. Wood grain shows like water lines under your wrist. Somewhere under the floor, a rat shifts with a dry scratch, then finds stillness again. You lean a brush across a narrow stand so the hairs are free and do not bend. The brush handle is wood worn like old bone, light, warm, ready. The lamp hiss holds a thin thread across the room. The soft grain on stone keeps its low circle and carries your thoughts the way a slow river carries light. You pause to brush a ring of dust away from the edge of the stone and add one more drop of water. The ink stick moves in small circles, then longer ones, then small again, and the sound changes, shaped the way wind through reeds changes when a cloud shifts. It stays soft and sure. Black pools gather at the mouth of the well and hold a skin that wavers, then folds, then settles. You lift the stick, rest it on its cloth, and watch the surface. A faint scent rises from the mix, woody and clean. You tilt the stone so a ribbon of ink slides into the bowl. The brush hairs dip once, then lift, and you see the line of wet on the tips shine like lacquer. When the hairs settle back to rest, they make the lightest sigh. Almost nothing, enough to say the tool is alive. You carry the bowl with both hands and set it on a flat board near the wall. Then bring a narrow sheet and pin 2 corners with smooth stones. You tie a thin rope along the bottom edge so the paper does not curl. You do not rush. The brush goes back to the stand. You lean forward and breathe slow into your coat so your warmth does not touch the wet surface. Smoke from the lamp is thin and sweet, not sharp. You listen to the house the way you listen to a person you know well. One mat shift from a sibling. One bowl moved in the kitchen, the small quiet after. The soft grain on stone is gone for the moment, but a little of it seems to stay inside your hands. You return to the inkstone and circle the stick again to deepen the color. The sound comes back at once, soft grain on stone, and the world narrows kindly to the round motion and the patient thickening. A drop of water falls from the stick's end and marks the stone with a pale ring. You sweep it in with one pass and smooth the surface like a field made ready for seed. A goat outside the door pushes hay with a slow mouth and gives a small snort. The smell of reed sap lingers on your fingers from the morning. You rub your thumb against the cloth and feel the clean weave catch and let go. You test the ink on a scrap strip and watch it soak and hold. The brush leaves a clean line that narrows and grows on one long exhale you do not fully notice. You watch the edge dry to a soft shine, and then to a calm black with no grain showing. It is right. The brush hairs come back together on their own when you lift. They sigh against the stand, a low silk sound that stays near your ear even when you move away. For a short moment you smile with the kind of humor that warms and does not ask for a reply. The ink stick asks for patience and pays with quiet. You break a small piece of bread and hold it above the lamp a heartbeat, then eat. It tastes dry and a little salty, with smoke that seems to live in every thread of this house in winter. You drink 2 careful swallows from a bowl and taste clay and cold. The water cools the chest and clears the mouth of crumb. You wipe your fingers on a cloth and fold it in half, then fold it again. The folds sit square at the corner of the table. You lift the inkstone and feel its honest weight. Soft grain on stone begins once more as you thicken the mix for a second bowl to carry later to the platform. You gather 3 shallow bowls and set them in a line. Thin, medium, thick. You stir each with the back of the brush and watch the shine change. The lamp hiss stays level. Dust hangs in the air like a soft veil you only see when you move a sleeve. Your knee meets the mat and knows the straw under the weave. You look at your hands and see the faint gray at the base of each finger where ink haze sits like a shadow. You wash them in a small bowl and the water turns faintly dark. You pour it into a jar for later. The skin on your knuckles feels softer after the clean. You take a thin strip for headings and set 1 stone on the top end to keep it still. You lean, you draw 1 slow line, then another. Not letters yet, only lines to guide the eye later when the sky work sends numbers and signs. The brush hairs move like a small animal that knows its home. They leave the page and sigh again on the stand. A boat rope answers the tide far away with a slow rub on wood. The sound comes through the wall like a memory and sits near the hiss of the lamp without pushing it aside. You watch the line dry from shine to matte and feel the body settle. You carry a damp cloth to the threshold and wipe the board where ash fell last night, then return to the table and cover the bowls with thin lids so dust will not find them. You tie a cloth band around the inkstone and around the stand so they travel together and do not slide. You fold a spare cloth for upstairs and place it under the bundle. The rope that ties the ladder is close to your hand when you lean to gather the set. It feels dry and sound, with a faint plant smell that is clean and old. You listen for the house once more. Nothing asks for you. You wait 1 quiet count so the ink can settle in the bowls and not run. You check the lamp and lower the wick a little to save the oil. The flame answers and stays steady. Warm metal carries a light smell of iron. Your shadow moves across the wall like a slow sail and then melts into the corner. You place the bowls in a shallow tray with sand set into it so they will not slide. The sand smells like dry riverbank and holds the bases the way soft earth holds a foot. You lift the tray and feel the weight press into the arms, not heavy, only present, like a tool that wants you to notice it so you do not forget your care on the stair. The soft grain on stone is quiet now, but your ears keep that circle going in a place the room cannot touch. You stand and the mat settles with a low sound. The rat under the floor does not move. The goat rubs horn once against the outside wall and then swallows hay. You slide a cloth over your shoulder to guard the tray from sleeve dust, then carry the set to the door. Wood smells sweet where the frame meets the lintel. Cold air waits beyond and holds the yard in a calm that matches your room. You look once at the grid that waits for the night sky. Reeds neat and sure, rope tight to stone, sand brushed level as a table. Ink will find its place there soon enough. For now it sits quiet in bowls and does not ask for more. You lift the lamp from its hook and let it lead, low and kind. The wick gives that thin, steady hiss you have known since you were small. You watch the flame through the horn shade and keep your pace even so the oil does not stir. The tray rides well on your palms. The ink does not spill. The rope at the ladder looks steady, and the wood rings are dry. You set the tray down on the bench and test each rung, not with fear, only with care learned from long winters and old wood. The night will hold its own tests. This hour is for simple tasks done right once. You cover the inkstone with its cloth and hold it to your chest for a short moment so your body gives it a little warmth before the climb. Stone answers skin the way river stones answer sun after ice. You lift the tray again. The lamp hiss keeps its silver thread beside your ear. The house is still, the yard is ready, the grid waits. The soft grain on stone stays in your hands like a small rhythm that will not leave, and the brush hairs seem to remember the sigh they made and hold it inside their narrow bound. When you turn toward the stair, the room gives you one last mix of smells: oil, smoke, wet wood, clean sand, a hint of bread, and it sits like a good coat on the shoulders. The bowls touch the sand in the tray and make a faint, pleasant rasp. You tilt the lamp a little so the shade throws its warm circle where your feet will go. Outside, far off, the boat rope rubs the post and grows quiet. You breathe through your nose, slow and sure, and feel the chest rise under wool. You watch the edge of the tray and wait for nothing but balance. The hush you made at the inkstone seems to move with you now, soft and patient, ready to follow you up the stairs and into the night. The hush you made at the inkstone stays with you as you face the stair, a small calm that stands beside your ribs and asks for nothing. You hold the lamp in your left hand and lift the tray with your right, bowls settled in sand so they do not slide. Oil smells warm and plain through the horn shade. Moonlight falls in a thin wash across the threshold, and dust shows in the beam like pale seed. You carry the set to the first rail and feel the wood under your glove, dry and cold, grain raised by winter air. Your boots find the first plank, slow and sure. A rope near the ladder gives one small creak, a friendly sound that keeps time while you climb. You lean your weight forward and let the rail guide the arms. The tray rides level. The bowls barely move. You watch the horn shade glow on the next rung and on the old wood bolts that hold the frame. The lamp's thin hiss draws a silver line in the quiet. A faint smoke smell reaches from the brazier below and sits with the clean scent of sand. Somewhere past the wall, a neighbor coughs once, and then nothing follows. The stair feels honest under your soles, not soft, not harsh. When you shift the tray a finger's width, the rope speaks again with a low, kind creak, as if to say it also knows this path. Halfway up, you set the tray on a shelf board made just for this pause. You fold a small cloth over the bowls, so dust will not find them. The rail cools your wrist through the coat. Down in the dark, A rat moves under the floor and goes still. You tie a slip of cord around the lamp handle so it cannot swing, then lift it again and carry it higher. Shade steady, flame small, but ready. Moonlight lies on each plank ahead, like a thin frost of milk. You taste old tea at the back of your tongue and a little smoke from the house. The rope near the ladder breathes its soft creak and settles. At the turn, you brush a light rim of powder from the step with your sleeve. The cold has left thin dust where the roof slit leaks. The wood smells like resin, an old sun caught and saved from summer. Your gloves keep a small heat, enough for the fingers to work and hold. From the alley side, a goat noses hay and scrapes horn on a post one time, close and then gone. You wait a slow count so the lamp can keep its calm. You carry the tray once more and feel the sand answer your balance. The soft creak returns as the ladder line changes under your hand. A quiet measure, neither fast nor slow. The platform receives you with a wide, pale floor and a low rail all around. Frost clings to the far edge where the roof meets the night. You set the tray on the work table, its top faced with wood worn smooth as a river stone. The sand in the tray holds each bowl in place. You fold open the cloth and watch the surface of the ink shine, then dull, then hold. The lamp stands at the corner and gives a steady hiss. The smell of warm oil mixes with clean ice air that comes through the slit. You lean your forearms on the rail and feel the dry cold. The grain presses a slow map into your sleeves. You work the small tasks that keep hands honest. You brush fine dust from the siding board with a soft cloth. You carry a low bowl of water from the covered jar and set it by the stand. The lid makes a round, gentle sound when it meets the rim. The water smells like clay and winter and a little wood. You tie a short rope from the ladder post to a ring by the table, a habit learned from wind and care. The rope answers with one soft creak when the knot cinches. Far off, a boat rope rubs the tide post in the same low way, and the two sounds meet and sit together without strain. You lift the thin board that shows the north line and lay it on its pins. Wood fits wood with a quiet confidence. Your thumb finds a notch you know by shape, and the board settles flat, not proud, not shy. You watch the yard below through the slit. The reed markers stand where you set them, small posts in sand, calm as if they had always grown there. Your mouth holds a memory of bread from earlier, plain and a little salty. The coat keeps your chest warm while your cheeks stay cool, and the contrast clears the head. The lamp hisses. The rope near the ladder gives a small reply, the same note as before. You handle the brush and feel the pipe-straight shaft under the skin, a fine weight that wants to be held closer to its middle. You lean and dip the hairs, then lift and let the extra fall back so the point forms. The smell of ink is woody and good. It sits below the oil and above the cold, a narrow band of comfort that keeps the room from empty. Under the platform, the house is quiet. A sibling turns on a mat and mutters into cloth, then is still. You carry the brush to a test strip and draw one short line to wake the wrist. The ink lands clean and dries to a soft black. You set the brush back and listen for the rope's small creak. It comes once, then rests. You move along the rail with your palm and check each peg that holds the windscreen. Wood nubs press the glove. You press back and feel them answer. A weak seam lifts near the east side, so you fold a strip of cloth and wedge it snug. The cloth smells faintly of ash and old soap. You watch your work with steady eyes and see no more trouble. The moon is high enough now to dust the planks in a thin silver. Frost shows where your boots do not go, a light rim along each board. You wait and let your shoulders settle, and the body learns the temperature of this height. The yard air that reaches you tastes like cold iron and pine resin from the gate beam. In the far dark, there is a cartwheel somewhere, wood on frozen ground, not near, not far. You lift the gourd for a careful swallow. Water meets your mouth with a clean bite that wakes the tongue and then eases. You fold the spare cloth and tuck it under the inkstone so its base will not chill too fast. You watch the horn shade hold its small circle over the bowls, and the lamp's hiss stays level, like a line drawn once and kept. The rope near the ladder gives one slow creak as the wood adjusts, friendly, almost like a nod. You carry the sighting frame to the north rail and set it where your hands know it belongs. The frame is wood rubbed smooth, corners tied with thin cord. You press each knot, each holds. A thin line of frost brightens the top string, and you brush it away with the back of your knuckle so the cold will not drip into the bowl later. Smoke from the kitchen has thinned to almost nothing. What remains leaves a small, sweet taste when you wet your lip. The night asks for quiet work. Nothing rushes. You watch the line of the roof, the seam of the sky, the pale face of the yard stones. The rope keeps its gentle creak and then falls silent again. You kneel by the table and arrange the 3 bowls. Thin, medium, thick, in a row you can read in the dark without looking hard. The sand under the tray smells like dry riverbank. You tie a cloth around your wrist to wipe the brush without hunting. You fold the paper sheets and set the corners under smooth stones so the night air cannot lift them. Your shoulders drop when the order appears, the kind that is not rigid, only kind. You breathe through your nose and feel the wool across your chest move a small way and stop. The lamp has its hiss. The rope keeps the memory of a creak inside the wood. You walk the edge of the platform one more time, boots placing their slow rhythm along the boards you trust. Each plank answers with a mild sound that belongs to winter wood. Not a groan, not a crack, only a dry, short note that vanishes as soon as you move on. You lean to watch the sky through the slit and find the north line holding steady. A thin seam where dark meets more dark. The yard below is a shape you know blind. Well, stones, reeds, rope. A faint scent of straw reaches up from the shed. Somewhere, a boat rope rubs and is done. When you stand straight again, the ladder's rope gives its soft creak, as if to close the circle of the hour. You sit at last on the low stool and rest your hands on the table. Wood is warm where the lamp has worked. The brush lies ready. The ink waits in its bowls. The cloth sits square. The sighting board faces north and does not argue. You watch and wait, the 2 oldest tasks. Your tongue carries a small salt from bread. Your face holds the clear cold of the roof. Your ears keep the small line of the lamp's hiss and the once-in-a-while answer of the rope's kind creak. Nothing asks to be loud. Nothing needs to be solved before it's time. The stair, the rail, the rope, the lamp, the bowls, the cloth, the sand, the wood, all of it stands where you placed it and keeps your place for you. The platform grows quiet in the way a field grows quiet when snow has crusted, not empty, only complete. You hold still and let the orders settle into your hands. The rope near the ladder gives one last small creak and then rests in its fibers. The rail stays dry under your palm. Moonlight lays its powder on the planks. The hiss goes on. The night takes your weight and does not mind. The hiss of the lamp holds its thin line beside your ear as you turn from the rail to the work table. The bowls of ink sit in sand and keep their level. Your coat keeps a small store of warmth at the chest, while the air near the roof slit stays clean and sharp. You brush a faint ring of dust from the table with a folded cloth, and feel the grain of wood under the cloth's soft drag. The sighting board waits against the wall, pine pale where hands have handled it, darker where knots hold old sun. You lift it with both hands, feel the cool plank settle over your palms, and carry it to the pins that rise from the frame like two short teeth meant for this one task. You lean, set the near edge, and guide the board down until wood finds iron. The board thunks once into place, not loud but sure, a small promise you can trust. Frost grains along the rim sparkle like salt. They crush under your glove and turn to a clear wet that runs to the seam and stops. Pine smells rise from the board as if the cold pulls the scent free again. It is a clean resin line that sits beneath the lamp oil and above the raw night. You rest your forearms on the edge and feel the dryness of winter wood take a little from your sleeves and give back steadiness. You run a cloth along the north lip and brush off pale grit that fell from the roof slit. Sand from the tray, fine as flour, clings to the cloth's weave and stays there. You set the cloth on the rail and place a small stone on its corner so the wind cannot lift it. From the alley a goat noses hay. Horn finds old wood with one soft scrape, then peace again. Far beyond, near the dark water, a boat rope answers the slow pull of tide with a low rub you feel more than here. The lampshade warms your knuckles. The iron hook that holds it tastes faintly of smoke when you lick dry lips, and the air brings that flavor forward. You sight along the board's length and find the black seam where dark meets more dark, the line you know as north, because the house and the yard and your bones have learned it. You watch, not to judge, only to let your eyes settle to the long pull of the sky. The board's pins keep their hold. The board keeps still. The rails on both sides hold their frost like fine thread. You draw a short rule from the tray and lay it across the near end, then bring the thin bowl of ink closer. The bowl rattles once against the sand, a round, soft sound that fades as soon as it is made. The board answers with that memory of the earlier thunk, still in the wood as if stored there. You take up the brush and roll the handle between finger and thumb until the hairs point true. The woody ink smell lifts into the cold and makes a narrow band of comfort under your nose. You lean and place the brush on the board face where the line will live. The pine grain under the thin paint feels faintly ridged to your guiding hand. Not enough to trouble the stroke, just enough to say, "This is wood, not stone." You draw the north line slowly from mark to mark, and the bristles make a sound like silk pulled across a sleeve. Behind you, a sibling turns on a mat and mutters a shape of a word that does not ask you to answer. You lift, wait, and watch the wet shine settle to a calm black. The cold air takes the new line and firms it. The lamp hiss keeps its steady wire of sound. You fold the cloth again and brush the board's far edge, lifting what frost remains so it cannot fall into the bowls. The bowl of water you brought from the covered jar holds a clear skin. You break it with the back of the brush and rinse the hairs, then shake once over sand so no drop will run where it should not. Pine scent and lamp oil share the space without fight. You set the brush to its stand and feel the small rest in your hand where work has eased. You check the pins with a gentle push. Nothing rough, only enough to know the set is strong. The board holds to the frame. The frame holds to the posts. The short rope you tied earlier keeps the ladder married to the ring. The rope answers with one slow creak as the knot settles deeper, friendly and known. You press your palm to the rail and feel the dry cold through the glove like grain pressed into cloth. The sky above the slit is clear enough to show a thin drift of light where the north stays quiet and the rest of the dark turns around it. You lift the thin bowl and carry it to the side so it will not collect frost. You take a small bite of bread from your pocket and hold it near the lamp for a moment. The crumb warms, and the taste comes up. Plain flour, a little salt, a hint of smoke that seems to live in your winter things. You chew slow and let the steady work keep its place. A neighbor coughs once beyond the wall, and then the alley returns to cold silence. Under the floor, a rat crosses a beam with one dry scratch, and then stops. The board's faint thunk seems to stay with you, not in your ear now, but in your hands. An old, simple note that says the board is home on its pins. You bring the siding frame and rest it on the board with care. Wood kisses wood with a brief, dull sound that belongs to tools, not music. You check the cord that marks the center. You pull it straight. You tie it tighter around a notch you know by feel. The cord's fibers press a pattern into your thumb that lingers after you let go. Frost dust along the rail catches moonlight and gives the eye a small path to follow back to the line you made. You lean your shoulder into the post. The post leans back, and the whole of it feels like a gate well hung. The lamp's hiss holds its place. The rope gives one more mild creak, not asking for attention, only marking time. You slide a narrow strip of paper under the near edge and press it flat with a warm palm. The paper smells clean and a little like straw. It will take a mark later if the sky gives you a position to hold. You set a smooth stone on one corner and a second on the other. Stones that lived for years in the yard path before they came to this table. The board keeps its pine scent, a quiet sweetness that helps the chest feel steady. You carry the bowl of water to the rail and tip it to the far side of the slit. The thin pour makes a soft murmur on wood and stops. The small sound helps the mind keep a slow pace. You crouch to the lower pins and brush away a skin of dust from the frame footings. The dust lifts and floats, then falls on your sleeve and stays, a fine gray that does not complain. You wipe it with your hand, and it leaves a pale mark on your glove, the kind of mark that makes no trouble for any work that matters. You bring up a little sand in a wooden scoop and settle it around the pin bases so the cold cannot creep in and shift them. Sand smells like dry riverbank. It holds to the scooped shape for a moment, and then spreads and lives where you put it. The board answers with a long quiet, as if pleased with the support. You lean to watch the north seam again, steady and thin, and follow it down the board, face to the new line that mirrors it. The line is even, the edges hold, the ink has cured to a soft black that reads true. You lift the rule and lay it along the mark to see if your hand's small tremor has shown. It has not. You lower the rule and set it aside. You press your palm to the pine and feel a little of your heat pass to it. A fair trade at this hour. The cold comes back to your skin, and your coat answers with the warmth it has kept. The board stays still. The pins do not move. The memory of that first, sure thunk rests in the frame. You pour a thin ribbon of oil down the lamp's pin so the hinge will not cry in the deeper night. Oil smell rises, warm and mild. You wipe the run with a cloth and fold the cloth again so the clean side faces out. You sort the bowls by weight with a brief lift, thin, medium, thick, so your hands can find them without thought later. The sand in the tray rubs in a soft way against the bowl's bases. A pleasant, dry sound that belongs to winter roofs and careful work. Far water moves. A boat rope rubs its post and grows quiet again. You stand and let your back stretch. Then you lean once more over the board and sight the line for a final time. The rail's edge is cool and a little rough where a small nick lives. Your glove finds it and stays. In the alley, the goat breathes hay dust and settles. The smell of straw comes up, faint and good. The yard grid below looks ready, reeds and sand, rope drawn straight between stones, the whole plain waiting for the sky to place its thin marks. You listen inside the hush and hear very little, the lamp's thread of sound, the board's silence, the cold, and your own coat moving as wool does when a body works and then rests. You lift the brush again, dip to the thin bowl, and draw a small sign at the end of the north line so your later notes have a home. The hairs glide and rise. The line holds. The board takes the mark and does not bleed. You rinse the brush in the water bowl and watch a faint cloud leave the hairs and fold into the clear. You set the brush on the stand and press the stand's feet into the sand so it will not shift. You place the water bowl where frost cannot find it. The lamp hiss does not change. The rope does not speak. The board remains as you made it, set, true, and quiet. You taste the last bit of bread from your pocket and finish the small meal without rush. Salt lives on the tongue. Oil and smoke make their thin band in the nose. Pine sits easy in the room like a patient guest. You pull your coat tight, not from sudden cold, only to keep the work inside. Your hands feel clean, a little dry at the knuckles from the air, but ready. The north line is done. The pins hold. The board keeps its sure promise. When you place your palm on the pine once more, the wood gives back only its cool grain and the memory of that first soft thunk that told you the night would accept this piece of order. You lower the wick a touch to save oil and shade the horn so the platform sits in wider dark. The new line makes a thin road that points where you will watch. You gather the cloth, the rule, the spare stone, and leave the bowls set and safe. Frost holds along the rail like fine thread. The boards under your boots keep their winter dryness and their mild sound. The rope near the ladder gives one last small creak, then rests. The north holds steady toward the dark, and the board stays true, pine-scented and quiet on its pins, the night's sure measure under your hands. The north line you traced holds steady on the board, and the frame keeps still against the posts, so you carry your weight to the eaves, where the roof gives shelter from the slow drift of cloud. You set the lamp low beside your knee, and let its thin hiss live close to the wood. Cold pushes in around your collar and tastes like iron on your tongue, plain and honest. You fold a cloth twice and lay it on the stool. Then settle your weight there and feel the grain of wood through wool. Smoke from the house below is soft tonight. It lifts a warm band that sits under the clean winter air and does not rise far. The hiss stays light, and even while you watch the sky for a quiet gap, you hold a shallow bowl, tip a little water across its lip, and watch the line turn silver in the lamp's circle, then dark again when you set it down. The rim is smooth stone, cool against your thumb, and the weight sits well in your hand. A rope from the ladder holds firm at the post. The knot you tied there earlier keeps its shape, and the fibers answer the night with a dry, friendly rub when the wind moves. Cloud edges slide past the roof slit like slow cloth drawn by careful hands. The hiss stays, thin as wire. You lean your shoulder into the post and wait without rush. You brush a light skin of dust from the board's far corner and lay the cloth across the rail so grit will not fall into the bowls. The cloth smells faintly of ash and old soap. It is a small, steady smell that keeps company without asking for thought. Somewhere in the alley, a neighbor coughs once and closes a door with the soft weight of wood on wood. Down in the yard, a goat noses hay and finds a better armful with one slow scrape. Cold air makes the face sting and then go quiet. The lamp's hiss steadies the hour, while cloud sheets thin and pull back in gentle seams. Your hands move because waiting is easier when hands move. You lift the brush and stroke the hairs flat against a clean cloth, then set it on the stand so the point keeps its shape. Ink smells woody and good where the bowls sit in sand, their bases held from sliding. You fold a spare cloth and tie it around your wrist to wipe the handle later without hunting. A small stone keeps the corner of a paper strip from lifting. The rope at the ladder reads the wind and gives one reply, low and kind. The hiss keeps the room together the way a spindle keeps thread from wandering. The air finds your fingers no matter how you fold your sleeves, and the cold there is a quiet teacher. You hold the bowls near the lamp for a short while so the skin does not set too quickly when the brush meets the surface later. The horn shade warms the knuckles and smells faintly of oil and iron. You take a small piece of bread from your coat, hold it close to the lamp's circle, and eat. It is dry and a little salty, with smoke that belongs to winter rooms. The body settles. Under the floor, a rat crosses a beam and is still. The hiss lives on, easy as a long line drawn with a soft hand. You lean under the eaves and watch cloud lanes pass above the slit, each one its own slow field. Some hold to the north line and make it dull. Some leave a faint border where the dark seems deeper by contrast. Your tongue keeps that iron taste, not sharp now, only present. You feel wool against your ribs and wood along your spine, and those simple contacts help the hour stay simple. Smoke from the house reaches your face and folds back again, a thin cover that touches and goes. The hiss keeps the same small pitch, and you find you measure time by it rather than by any mark on paper or board. You carry a small jar to the rail and brush frost grains from the slit's edge, so they do not fall to the bowls when the wind shifts. The grains shine like fine salt in the lamp's circle, and then vanish against the dark wood when you wipe them to the side. You pour a ribbon of water from the jar into the empty bowl that waits for rinse, and the pour makes a soft sound on stone. Then nothing. The rope holds firm. Sand under the tray keeps each bowl true. The hiss tells you the lamp has enough oil for the long watch, and your shoulders ease a little at that known supply. You think in a plain way that the sky keeps its own slow page and does not hurry for any hand. The dry line sits in your head and makes you smile without showing it. The yard below keeps the shape you made earlier, reeds in sand, rope tied between stones, the whole grid like a shelf for marks that have not arrived. You pass your palm along the board's edge and feel where pine is smoother from winter use. The brush lies ready, hairs together, handle clean. The bowls shine in their shallow way. The hiss holds its quiet place, and so do you. You lift the paper strips and place 2 more smooth stones so corners will not curl if the wind turns. Cloth on your wrist is warm from your skin and will help keep the brush steady when the hour shifts. You check the rope at the ladder again from habit, not fear. The knot sits right, and the line gives a single mild complaint that fades back into wood. Far out, beyond houses, a boat rope answers the tide post with a slow rub you barely hear. Cold presses your cheeks, then forgets them. You wait and watch the gaps build in the cloud until a thread of clear lies there, thin as a blade made of night. You keep still enough to let the clear thread grow by itself. You do not talk to it in the mind. You do not push. You place the lamp a little farther back so the slit can hold more dark, and the hiss draws its song away from the opening by a hand's width. You lift the thin bowl of ink nearest the rail and hold it just long enough to feel its rim cool and smooth again, then set it where your right hand will find it without searching. You lick dry lips and taste smoke and salt. Wood under your palm is dry, steady, loyal. The hiss is the one sound that does not depend on the sky. Time moves in a small, even walk now that the wind has thinned. Cloud edges ease apart, and the north seam begins to show with a clean line, the kind that does not lie. You lean and watch it settle. Your coat holds a narrow heat at the chest, and your breath stays inside the wool where it belongs and does not touch the work. The goat in the alley chews and rests. A neighbor shifts on a mat and then sinks again into quiet. The lamp does its small job and keeps the cold from biting the bowls. The hiss holds the hour, and the hour holds you under the eaves like a hand over a calm bowl of water. You take the brush and let the hairs touch the thin ink, then lift and lay it across the stand so the point keeps sharp for when the clear window is wide enough to use. You fold the spare cloth and push it under the board edge so the pine will not take frost where your arm will lean later. Dust in the lamp's beam shows and then is gone as the air moves without sound. The rope gives that one small creak again as the frame settles by a finger's width. You find you are not cold now, only present. The hiss is still there, steady and low. A small line to follow while you study the gaps. You taste the last crumb of bread and finish the water in the stone bowl, clay cool on the lip. The north seam grows cleaner by slow degrees, and a faint star tries to show near it, then hides, then tries again. You do nothing more than watch. Sand under the tray holds weight and shape. Cloth under you holds the warmth you gave it. Wood across the rail holds frost like a fine braid. Ink sits ready, and the board waits, and the rope keeps the ladder honest. The hiss does not tire. You raise the horn shade one small measure, and then settle it again so the light does not flare. Oil gives a little more scent as the wick lifts, mild and kind. You count the slow pull of cloud, not with numbers, but with the story of how each seam opens and closes across the slit. The sky reads like a quiet page, even if you do not write on it yet. The bowls stand in their sand, and the brush stands in its cradle, and the paper waits under two smooth stones. The hiss holds, a thread of sound you can lay over your own pulse and forget which one began first. When the window finally forms, true and thin, you will rise and move in the order you prepared. For now, the night asks you only to sit and know its shapes. You lean back against the post and let wood take your weight without complaint. Smoke and pine and winter air find their places in the nose. The iron taste thins, but does not leave. The rope gives no sound now. The frame is content. The lamp lives where you set it, and its hiss presses a soft mark into the room, a line you can hold while the sky opens by slow hand. The hiss stays, small and steady, and you keep your eyes on the clear, patient seam. The thin seam you watched grows clean at last, and the drift you tracked lets go. You ease from the eaves to the rail and let the body learn the new stillness. The lamp sits low by your knee. You lower the wick until the horn shade shows only a small red eye, and the hiss softens softens, then gives itself to quiet. The air turns sharp against your cheeks and holds steady. Frost waits along the plank, pale and fine, and the grain of wood under your glove feels dry, honest, and cold. The night opens like a clear bowl you can hold without spilling. You lean and check the frame, then the rope at the ladder post. The knot keeps its shape. Fibers feel tight and a little rough, as if the cold has drawn them small and strong. You carry the lamp 2 hands to the far corner and cover it with a folded cloth so the coal can sleep and not stain the bowls with smoke. Oil leaves a mild smell on the air that mixes with pine resin from the board and the thin iron taste that sits on your tongue. Frost crackles under your heel when you settle back to the stool. A small sound that marks where you are and then vanishes. You let your eyes widen to the dark, slow and kind. The roof slit holds a strip of deep black now. Not blue, not gray, the kind that shows true points. The north line on the board lies straight and quiet, a dark thread you can trust. Cold rests on the rail and climbs a little into your sleeves. Your wool answers with a narrow warmth that stays close. Smoke from the house below is only a faint ribbon. A neighbor coughs once beyond the wall and is done. The boat rope far off gives one slow rub and then yields to the still river. Silence takes the room and becomes part of the work. You bring the thin bowl of ink near and set it into sand so it will not slide. The bowl's stone rim is smooth under your thumb and carries a whisper of winter chill. The brush handle is wood worn to the shape of hands, light and true. You roll it between finger and thumb and feel the point settle. Ink smells woody and mild. It holds a memory of the stick and the stone and the slow circle you made. You do not rush. You fold a cloth and fit it under your forearm so the pine will not pull your warmth too fast. Frost at the board's edge brightens and holds like sugar. You sight along the north seam and let the eyes rest there until they know it without strain. The sky is sharp now. You can see small stars arrive as if someone had brushed dust from glass. Your breath lifts pale in front of your face and then clears. You keep it low in the wool where it cannot trouble the work. The rail prints its grain through your glove. The texture talks in a plain way about weather and years. Down in the alley, the goat noses hay and finds a better place to lie. Under the floor, a rat changes beams with one dry slide and then waits. Frost crackles once more under your heel when you shift. A thin note inside the stillness. You carry a paper strip to the line and set 2 smooth stones to keep it true. The stones give off the faint smell of clean dust when your glove drags over them. It is a kind smell, old and quiet. You lift the brush, touch the thin ink, and let the hairs take only what they want. The point meets the strip with a faint sigh, and a short mark lives where you planned to begin. It dries to a calm black. You lean and watch it hold. Your tongue keeps the salt of bread from earlier, not strong, just enough to remind you that the body stands with you as the tools stand with you. Cold keeps the room even and simple. You set the brush across the stand and fold the spare cloth on your knee. The bowls and sand show a light skin where the air has worked. You stir them with the back of the brush, slow and careful, and the skin gives up its shine and joins the pool again. Water in the rinse bowl smells like clay and keeps a narrow chill that clears the fingers when you dip and wipe. You do not hurry the wrist. The north seam waits. It will be there when your hands are ready. Beyond the roof, the river is quiet, but you can feel the weight of it in the dark. Silence holds its place. The bare, steady cold becomes the sound you follow. You stand for a moment, not to change anything, only to let the legs learn this stillness. Wool rubs softly where your coat folds. The board sends up a little pine when you brush frost from its lip. That resin smell carries summer inside it, and it sits under the nose like a small, good memory. You set the frost aside with the cloth so it will not fall into the ink. A faint white powder stays on the cloth and shines in the dark. Your heel meets a patch of rime and gives a thin crackle again, then the plank is quiet. The night feels wider for that small sound, as if it showed you the edge and then stepped back. You drink from the gourd and taste clean cold and stone. The swallow wakes your mouth and then settles into the chest with a slow, warm line. The paper strip lies where you placed it, corners pinned, ready to guide your eye when the time comes. You check the rope again because care is a habit and a friend. Fibers hold. The knot sits like a small stone in river sand. The lampshade at the far corner is a dim shape under cloth. No hiss now, no flame, only the quiet smell of oil lingering. Your coat keeps a small pocket of heat at the ribs, enough to let the fingers work. You watch the sky and let it move. You do not call it. You do not press it. A cluster shows, then cleans, then shows more. The black looks deeper where no cloud lives to dull it. The north line you drew matches the seam above in a way that eases the jaw and lets the shoulders rest lower. Your hand returns to the brush because the body remembers this order and trusts it. Hairs meet the thin bowl again and lift with a neat point. The cold lays its fine hand on your cheeks, your nose, your ears, and makes a clear ring there that you can almost hear inside the quiet. You follow that ring the way you might follow a bell at a harbor far off. You place 2 small marks on the strip to ready the eye, not notes of what you see yet, only notes of where the hand will move when the time opens. The line is strong. The ink dries to a soft, even black. You set the brush back. You wait. The night answers by giving you more stars to trust. Down below, a sibling turns on a mat and the house sighs, a wool sound and then nothing. A neighbor in the lane scuffs wood with a shoe. Then the quiet is whole again. Frost crackles faintly under your heel once more when you shift your stance to ease a knee. The sound is so small the sky hardly notices. You run your palm along the rail and feel splinters smoothed by years of touch. The wood gives nothing sharp, only a dry grain that reads straight. You raise the horn shade by a finger and let a thin line of light touch the bowls, then drop it again so your eyes keep their night. Oil gives one last soft scent and is done. You look toward the yard and see the reeds and sand, rope across stones, the grid waiting for a trail you can measure when the smear you seek shows where clear meets clear. You keep your voice inside and your thoughts quiet and plain. The cold holds the rooftop in a gentle clamp and keeps all things honest. You return to the stool and settle, cloth under knee, wool against wood, bowl near hand. You lean on the board edge where the cloth you placed before guards your heat. Ink sits ready, dark and calm. The sky is a clean slate now, but not empty. It holds what it holds and gives at its own slow rate. You plant your heel where the plank is dry and know it will crackle only if frost lives there. It does not, and so it stays still. The silence has its own shape now, wide and flat and kind. It grows into the room and into your hands. You watch. You wait. The bare, steady cold keeps time for you where the hiss once did, clear as stone and soft as dust. The stillness you learned in the last hour holds like a careful hand on your shoulder, and the roof slit keeps its deep strip of dark. You lean from the stool to the rail and let your eyes ride the north seam, slow and easy. Frost shows a thin edge along the plank. Wood grain presses through your glove with a dry, honest feel. The lamp sleeps under its cloth at the far corner. Oil leaves a mild scent that mixes with pine and cold iron. The bowls sit in sand and keep their level. You wait until the black looks ready to carry small things. You lift the sighting frame from the board and feel its wood settle into your palms. Light but sure, the cord its center tight between its tiny knots. You brush a soft dust from the pins with the back of your hand and set the frame down again so the cord lies along the north line you drew. Pine smell rises where your sleeve rubs the board. The rail holds a dry chill, and the roof skin above holds quiet. Far off, a dog gives one thin bark and then nothing more. The small sound finds the edge of your ear and goes still. You slide the sight along the board in a slow walk, careful not to jar the pins. The cloth you tucked at the rim keeps your arm warm enough to guide. The cord stays straight and helps your eye stay straight. The sky is sharp now. Stars sit like small, clean seeds across dark earth. You watch for a smear you can trust, not cloud, not smoke, not wish. The bowls hold their calm black. The air tastes like stone in winter. The wood under your fingers feels steady, and that steadiness makes you patient. You ease the sight a finger's width, then another. A narrow pale stain shows where there was nothing before, so faint you almost leave it. You hold the angle and look again. It is thin and white, a chalk dust mark on blue cloth, quiet as if it had been laid by a cold hand you cannot see. Your fingers tingle on the wood and you do not move the wrist. The dog far away gives a second mild bark, softer than the first. And then the city is quiet. You let the smear sit in your eye until the eye knows it without doubt. You slide the sight back and forth across it to see if it walks with you or if it holds its place. The cord keeps straight. The pins keep true. The smear stays where the seam says it should. You brush a grain of frost from the board's lip so it will not fall into a bowl and spoil the next mark. The roof skin above does not stir. A neighbor coughs once beyond the wall and settles again. Under the floor, a rat takes a slow path along one beam and then waits. The dog is done. The night returns to its open hush. You carry a paper strip to the nearest edge and set 2 smooth stones, one old river stone, one from the yard walk, on the corners. The paper smells faintly of straw and cold cloth. You lift the thin bowl of ink and feel the rim's cool weight, stone honest against the thumb. Ink smells woody and calm. It holds your work like a quiet friend. You dip the brush and lift it with just enough wet to wake the hairs. The handle is warm from your palm now. You lean, you watch. You wait for the smear to show in the same place again. It returns as if the sky had taken a slow breath and offered the same line back to you. You lay one short mark on the strip, a guide, nothing more. The brush hairs sigh on paper and close again to a neat point when you lift. The line dries to a soft black and does not run. You rinse the brush in the water bowl. Clay smell rises and clears the nose of oil. You wipe the handle on the cloth tied around your wrist and feel the weave scratch in a clean, small way. The bowls settle back into sand. The sight holds steady. The smear waits. You take a mouthful of water from the gourd, and the cold gives a waking taste of stone. You break a small piece of bread and hold it near the hornshade to soften, then eat. It is plain and a little salty. Smoke from the house lives inside it, as it lives inside all winter bread. Your jaw works slow and easy. The coat keeps a narrow warmth along the ribs. The rail keeps cold along the palms. Far downriver, a boat rope answers its post with one soft rub and is done. You lean back to the board and let your eyes find the pale trace again. You move the frame by the width of the cord and watch the smear's far end. It thins as a trail should thin. It does not flare or fray like low cloud. It keeps a shape that agrees with your line and the night. You set a second tiny mark on the strip and let it dry. The bowls shine in the lamp's faint memory and then lose their shine to the cold. You fold a spare cloth and push it under the board where your forearm meets wood. Pine smells rise where warmth touches grain. Your hand settles. The smear holds. You imagine the yard grid below, reeds and sand, straight rope between stones, each marker waiting for a number you have not written yet. The thought is plain and kind. You will carry sky to ground when the hour says so. For now, you keep your seat and your quiet. The smear looks the same again when you slide the sight one more time. It could fool a tired mind, but it does not fool this board. It is the sort of mark no broom would chase, which, you admit, is a relief to the broom. You almost smile and let it pass. The night does not need your jokes. You lift the brush and check the hairs against the cloth. They hold their point. You draw one light stroke to mark the angle you will measure later, a short leg to hold the thought in place. The brush leaves a clean line and rests on the stand. The water bowl sits where you set it, a small cold lake with the lamp's old light folded into its skin. The rope at the ladder post gives no voice. The knot is content. You roll your shoulders once inside the coat and listen for any sound that wants to rise. There is only the thin cold and the dry wood and your own slow work. You watch the smear fade and return and fade again, as if the sky was learning to show it to you without help. Your fingers keep that tingling at the tips, not sharp, not pain, a quick hum that makes them careful. Pine stays sweet at the edge of smell. Oil stays mild and low in the air. Dust sits on the table where your sleeve brushed it. You smooth it with one pass and it goes. The board takes your forearm and gives back steadiness. The stones hold the paper corners and hold your plan. You lean closer and keep your thoughts small. Down in the house, a sibling turns once and finds a new fold in the mat. The sound is wool on cloth, a safe, private thing. A neighbor shifts a shutter with a dull touch of wood. The city holds. The river holds. The roof slit keeps its clean strip. You draw a tiny point where the smear's head shows hardest and lift the brush. The ink dries as fast as the night allows. The water in the bowl takes the rinsed cloud and carries it down. You set the brush on the stand and let your hands rest on the board, palms open to grain. You do not chase more than the night will give. You run a finger along the cord at center and feel the twist that tells you which way it was laid. The twist helps the eye keep true. You slide the sight 2 fingers to watch the far edge of the pale tail, and then slide it back to check your marks. They read the same. The board is quiet under your weight. Sand in the tray smells like dry riverbed. The cold lifts through wool and stops where the body stops it. The smear remains a small, stubborn truth against the dark. You think of the reed markers waiting in the yard, their clean ends ready to carry this line into human hands. You think of the rope across stones, straight as a vow that does not use words. You take one last drink from the gourd and let the water set your mouth right. You slide the sight once more and find the pale tail exactly where your marks say it should be. A dog, the same far one or another, gives a thin, honest bark that reaches you and lies still. The sound is small, but it stays enough to mark the moment. You lower the brush into the thin bowl and let the hairs take one last sip of ink, then lift and lay the tool aside so the point can hold until the next measure. You fold the cloth on your knee and slip it under the board edge to guard what warmth remains. The paper strip waits with its 3 quiet notes. The rope at the ladder keeps silent. The lamp stays asleep under cloth. The sky looks cold and clean and sure. Your hands lie open on the wood where the grain runs straight. Frost holds along the rail like fine salt. The faint smear rests where it belongs, and the night grows wider around it. A far dog barks once more, soft as a memory, and the roof returns to quiet. The faint smear holds where your mark said it would, and your hands settle into the next plain task. You lift 2 straight reeds from the tray and brush thin frost from their ends with a fold of cloth. Wood under the cloth answers with a dry grain that steadies the fingers. The north line on the board lies quiet, dark and true, and the cold sits on the rail like a thin plate of iron. You taste smoke so light it is almost sweet, the kind that clings to wool in winter. Somewhere far off, a dog gives one short bark and then yields the roof to silence. You set the first reed along the board and tie it to a small peg with a twist of thin cord. The knot holds. The tail of the cord lies flat and does not trouble the sight. You lay the second reed across the face as a pointer and press its end into a shallow notch you cut last week. The glove feels stiff at the knuckles. The leather lifts and lowers like a slow hinge. The night tastes like dry pine smoke when you wet your lip and wait. You lean forward until wool meets wood and watch the faint tail hover near the reed's edge. Beside the table, the water clock waits with its quiet shape, a stone bowl set in sand so the base will not wobble. You carry a small cup, pour from a covered jar, and let water fill the upper cup through a narrow hole. The first bead falls. It makes a round plip that meets the wood and the night without push. You hold your hand over the lower bowl and feel a faint cool lift from the surface. The sound sits clean in the ear, a soft coin you can count without looking down. Far below, a goat noses hay and settles against a plank with a soft scrape. You place the back of your wrist on the board to keep the hand steady. The reeds lie true. One is a ruler, one is a guide. You count softly inside, not with words you could repeat, only with a calm line you learned from slow work. The tail shows, then thins, then shows again as your eye learns how the dark accepts it. The glove stiffens as the cold leans in, and the cloth under your forearm gives back a little warmth. Another bead finds the lower bowl with a round plip, and the sound fixes the span your mind is holding. You lift a narrow strip of paper and set 2 small stones on the corners so it will not curl. The stones smell faintly of clean dust from the yard path, a dry scent that seems almost warm when you notice it. You dip the brush in the thin bowl and draw one short line to set a place for the first count. Ink smells woody and calm. The hair tips whisper on the strip and close to a neat point when you lift. You rinse the brush in water. Clay rises in the nose and clears the smoke. A bead falls again, plip, and the line of time feels steady in your hands. You slide the pointer reed by a grain's width and wait for the smear to kiss its edge. The sky holds still, hard and clear. The board holds still, quiet and sure. You keep the count inside and feel the weight of wool on your shoulders, the grain of wood under your palm, the light pull of the cord at your wrist. Your tongue keeps a hint of salt from bread you ate earlier. It fits the cold the way a simple coat fits the body. The bead falls, plip, and you place a second tick on the strip. Not a number, not a word, only a little stroke that says, "This hour is moving." You pause to brush a thread of frost from the board's lip so it will not come loose and drift into a bowl. Pine comes up when the cloth warms the wood for a moment. It is a small summer in the nose that fades without fuss. The lamp sleeps under its cloth at the far corner. Oil hangs in the air in a thin, kind way. Under the floor, a rat crosses a beam with a dry, careful sound, and then is still. You lean to the side again and watch the tail slide a quiet span. The bead falls, plip, and your shoulder remembers to lower. You change nothing about the rule, nothing about the angle. You only keep the count. Your glove feels harder now, but your fingers still find the small moves easily. You place your palm flat and let the board take your weight a little. It gives back steadiness as payment. The river beyond the houses does not show, but a boat rope there answers a slow pull with one low rub, the kind that slides into thought and then vanishes. A neighbor coughs once behind a wall and lays down again. The bead falls, plip, and the reeds seem to breathe like two simple animals that trust you. You draw a third mark and then a fourth, small as seeds beside the strip's edge. Ink dries to a soft black that reads clean, even in thin light. You fold a spare cloth and push it under the board where your arm leans. The fold lifts the pine away from the frost and keeps your skin from telling you too much. The smell in the air is a mix you know by heart. Oil, smoke, clean water, a touch of bread gone from the mouth, but still in the head. The bead falls, plip, and the night gives back nothing more than what you ask of it. You hold the handle of the brush lower and make a longer guide for later measuring. You are not writing yet. You are placing places to return to. The strokes land without hurry. Sand in the tray grinds very softly under the bowls. When you shift them a little, the dry sound makes no claim, only assures you they are there. You drink a small mouth of water and taste stone and winter. Cold sits even across face and hands, a fair share that keeps the mind plain. The bead falls, plip, and you let the count inside slide past that round note as a cartwheel slides past a gatepost. You move the pointer reed a little more and test the tail's edge again. It meets the wood at the same slow pace, as if sky and board had agreed on the rate while you were not looking. Your jaw holds quiet against the cold. The coat's collar sits right and does not rub. You brush a faint dust from the rail with your knuckle and watch it float, then fall, then forget itself on the dark. The smear does not widen, it only walks. The bead falls, plip, and the run of your inside count matches its neat, round fall. For a moment you let the eyes rest on the reeds themselves, pale, trimmed, smooth from the canal, as simple as any field thing made into a tool. Your hand remembers the cut, the wet grass smell, the clean snap of winter sap. You look back to the sky and it gives you the same thin sign in the same place on a line you trust. You mark once more, a small stroke at the strip's edge, and lift the brush. Clay water swirls in the rinse bowl as the hairs open and close. The bead falls, plip, and the sound sits like a small stone on a larger stone, firm and kind. You eat the last bite of bread from your pocket and hold the crumb close to your mouth so you do not lose it to the cold. It tastes simple and right, dry and a little salty, with the thin smoke that belongs to winter kitchens. You rub your gloved hands together once to settle the leather where it buckled. The board answers your wrist with a patient grain that tells the hand where it is without looking. You place the pointer reed down and rest your eyes so they do not hurry the dark. The bead falls, plip, and your count keeps its shape without you pressing it. When you lift the sight again, the smear is still there, neither brighter nor weak. Only present the way frost is present along a rail until noon. You draw a light leg out from your earlier mark, so the span will have a home later when you measure in the yard. The brush whispers once more, and the line holds. You tie the pointer reed to its notch with a small loop, so wind will not shift it if a breath of air finds the slit. Rope at the ladder post stays quiet. The knot you made earlier does not ask for a hand. The bead falls, plip, and you can almost picture the circle it makes in the lower bowl. You watch the water settle, and then look again at the tail. The motion is small enough to be kind to the mind. It gives you no sudden change, only a narrow walk that suits the hour. The cloth under your forearm is warm now, and pine sits sweet at the edge of smell. Ink pools keep their dark. Sand keeps their place. Wood keeps your hands honest. You fold the strip back on itself and set a stone on the fold so it will not lift. The bead falls, plip, and the night holds its wide lid steady over house and yard and river. You add one more tiny stroke, no more than a hair's length, then set the brush down and smooth the strip with your palm. The smear rests where it should. The reeds lie quiet on the board. Your glove has softened just enough to forget its stiffness. You lean back and taste the clean cold. It is iron and pine and the faintest ash. Under the floor, the rat does not move. In the alley, the goat does not stir. The bead falls, plip, and the round note stays in the wood and the water and the air, the small sound you carry while the tail slides its patient span across the dark. The round plip from the water clock still lives in your ear as you turn to the table, and the thin tail in the sky holds steady on the line you marked. You draw the shallow tray close and set the bowls where your hand can find them without search. The lamp stands low at the corner and keeps a small, even light. Oil gives a mild scent that mixes with pine from the board. Cold lies across the rail, but wool at your chest holds enough warmth. You fold a cloth twice and smooth the table wood so dust will not follow the brush. You lift a narrow roll of silk and let one end slide over the board. The fiber smells like clean straw left in shade, dry and gentle. Cool touches your wrist where the edge rests. The surface is smooth in a way that asks for care but not fear. Two flat stones hold the corners with a firm, kind weight. You press the silk with your palm and feel the fine weave give and then hold. A thin cord lies ready to guide a margin. Its twist knows which way to pull. By the bowls, the ink shows 3 tones, each with its own slow shine. You pour a ribbon of water from a small cup into the thin bowl and circle once with the back of the brush. Water smells faintly of clay. The brush handle is warm from your grip. It fits the fingers the way a tool should. You lower the hairs and let them drink, then lift until a neat point forms. The lamp's horn shade warms your knuckles. The table wood answers with a steady grain under your forearm, and the cloth you folded guards your heat from the pine. You lower the brush and let the ink move. The first stroke lands with a tiny kiss you can feel in the wrist more than here. The tip makes a soft tick against the silk as the line ends and the hairs close. You watch the wet shine dull to calm black and know the mix is right. A neighbor coughs once beyond the wall and is done. Far off, a boat rope answers its post with one slow rub and then goes quiet. You set a second line beside the first and keep the space even. The bamboo sits in a bundle by the rail, trimmed, pale, still faint with the smell of river and smoke from the shed. You untie the rope and set 6 slips in a row. Each one shows a fine grain that guides the hand if you let it. You brush their faces with a clean cloth to lift thin dust. A small stone holds the near end while you place a cord line across the tops for a straight start. The slips feel cool and honest under your palm, wood that has agreed to become a page. You carry the reed pointer from the board for a moment and lay it along the cord so the eye can rest on a clear path. The tail in the sky gave you 3 quiet marks. You do not name them. You simply carry them into the hand. The brush meets bamboo with a whisper as you set a short stroke, then a second, small as seeds. The tip closes with a soft tick each time, the sound no larger than a fingernail on cloth. You pause, watch the ink hold at the edge, and let it dry without hurry. The water clock drops another bead. The round plip settles the hour in your chest without asking for words. You lift the thin bowl and turn it once in your hand so chill stone does not steal too much from the mix. Silk breathes cold where your wrist rests. You slide a folded cloth under bone and feel the cool ease. The brush draws a long plain line to join the earlier pair. Ink smells woody and calm, a narrow comfort in winter air. You keep the strokes small and steady, more placing than writing. A mouthful of water clears smoke from the tongue. You break a piece of bread and warm it near the horn shade, then eat. It tastes dry and a little salty. Winter oil lives inside it the way it lives in everything this season. Crumb dusts your fingers. You wipe them on the cloth tied at your wrist. Under the floor, a rat moves along a beam with a dry scrape and goes still. You return to the silk and let the brush add a short leg at the edge of a line, so the eye will find this place again later. The tip gives its soft tick and rests. You raise the lamp wick by a hair and then lower it again, so the light does not glare on the silk. Oil gives a thin, warm scent and settles. You lean to the bamboo slips and mark the next pair of strokes where your reed pointers asked you to hold a span. The table wood keeps the brush steady. The grain under your palm is a quiet guide. The ink dries to a soft, even black, neither glossy nor dull. You rinse the hairs in the water bowl. The swirl is slow and dark. Clay smell rises and clears your head. The cord that keeps the ladder true gives one mild creak as the frame shifts a finger's width. The knot holds. You place the brush across the stand and sort the slips by the order you just made. A clean cloth lies folded for blotting. You touch it to the silk's edge, not to lift ink, only to draw the last chill away from your wrist. Frost lives along the rail in a fine border. It stays where cold says it should. You look once to the roof slit. The dark seam is clean. Your earlier marks in the sky rest where you left them. You carry the bamboo to the far side of the table and set them on a board dusted with sand, so the ink will dry without gloss. The sand smells like dry riverbank. Each slip makes a faint wood-on-wood whisper as it meets the board. You tie a thin rope across the group so a stray wind will not lift the lightest one. The knot lies flat and small. The lamp sends a low warmth toward the page but keeps its distance. You touch the silk and make 3 small signs to close the set, each one ending with the soft tick you expect. From the alley, a goat noses hay and settles. A faint straw smell rides the air and meets the pine from the board. You press the silk flat with your left hand and write another plain line. Then lift and let the ink cure. You place a short stone at the lower corner so the sheet will not curl as it dries. The cloth under your wrist grows warm. You change it for a cool fold and feel the skin thank you in a quiet way. A neighbor moves a shutter with a slow touch, wood on wood, and then the lane returns to stillness. You take one more pass over the bamboo slips. Each stroke is clear. Each stroke lands where the reed and the tail asked you to hold the span. The soft tick repeats as a small, even answer to your care. It is a sound with no sharpness, only the weight of a fact set down. You lift the slips and angle them to the lamp. The black shows true and does not shine. You lay them back and smooth the cord across them with one finger so it will not leave a ridge when you tie. Silk now needs a fold. You bring the cloth that keeps dust from the face and lay it between the layers. The silk is cool along the edge of your hand. The fiber gives the way snow gives under a careful shoe and then holds. The smell is still clean straw. You set 2 stones where the fold begins, so it will learn the shape without strain. The brush lies quiet on its stand. A drop of water slides down the rinse bowl and settles. You listen, not for news, only for order. Oil soft in the nose, wood firm under the palm, water quiet in stone. You make a small note on a hanging strip so you will marry silk and bamboo in the yard when morning allows. The strip feels like dry leaf. The line lands with the same tiny kiss and the same soft tick. The sound sits in the air like a little nail set flush. You hang the strip on a peg by a rope so you can find it with your hand even in dim light. Under the floor, the rat is gone. Above the roof, the night holds clear. The river keeps its hidden pull. You let your shoulders settle and the work sit. You gather crumbs of bread from the cloth and fold the cloth over itself, then slide it into your coat. You lift the bowls one by one and set them deeper into sand so they will keep their mix for the next hour. The sand rubs dry against stone and promises steadiness. You lay the brush hairs flat with one gentle stroke of your thumb and tie a loose cord around the handle so it will not roll. The lamp stays low. The horn shade keeps the light kind. Pine, oil, and clean straw share the air without crowding. You check the rope at the ladder once more, not because you doubt it, only because you honor habit. The knot keeps its square shape. The fibers feel dry and strong. You look toward the yard and picture reeds and sand, stones along the corners, rope pulled straight. The tail in the sky is waiting for your next count. For now, silk and bamboo rest, clear and simple. You place your hand on the folded stack and feel cool through cloth. A steady winter cool that tells you the page will hold. The last sound is the brush tip's memory, that soft tick at the end of each line, small and sure as a fact that does not need praise. The soft tick at the end of each line fades into the room, and you let the brush rest on its stand. Silk lies cool under your wrist. Bamboo slips breathe out a dry scent like straw. You draw the tray a little back from the rail and feel the table wood hold steady under your palms. Cold sits along the edge of the board like a thin plate of iron. You lean toward the brazier under the eaves and reach for the clay cup you left to warm. The cup's curve fits your hands as if made for them. You lift the lid from the small pot and pour. Water moves from clay to clay, steady and low. Steam rises in a pale curl and smells faintly of toasted leaves. The scent is soft and clean. You hold the cup with both hands and feel heat reach knuckles, then fingers, then the thin place at each joint. Your lips taste a gentle bitter, simple and right in winter. You swallow and warmth settles in the chest like a candle behind cloth. The night answers by staying quiet. A coil of rope waits by the stair, frost bright on each twist. You carry the cup nearer and crouch so your coat brushes the plank. The rope holds its shape, stiff with cold, the fibers hard as small reeds. Melt begins where the coil faces the brazier. A clear drop forms, round as a seed, and lets go. It meets the board with a slow tap that you hear more with your bones than your ear. Another drop gathers. Another slow tap follows. The sound counts your pause without asking for thought. You sit on a folded cloth beside the coil and cradle the cup. Heat lifts into your fingers. The rim is smooth, the clay honest and heavy. The air at your face is crisp and dry, with a faint iron taste from the roof and a line of smoke from the house below. A neighbor coughs once behind a wall and then lies still. Under the floor, a rat shifts along a beam and forgets you. Your lips touch the cup again, and the bitter sits kind on the tongue. A melt drop finds wood with a slow tap and slides away. You lean to the brazier and brush ash from the grate with a short stick. Charcoal settles. A small glow wakes and holds. The smell is warm and wood-sweet. You lift the pot to feel its weight, then set it back so the water stays near hot but does not jump. Sand under the brazier legs holds the frame steady. Steam curls. You turn your cup between palms and feel heat move where cold was. From far off, a boat rope answers its post with a low rub and fades. A drop leaves the coil again. The slow tap lands true. You pull the coil nearer the brazier and lay a cloth under it, so melt does not pool on the plank. Frost beads loosen from the outer twist and show clear skin beneath. You brush the fibers with a dry rag to lift the ice, then smooth them down so the lay will not warp. The rope smells faintly of hemp and old river. Your glove feels stiff, the leather hard where cold has drawn it tight. A small bead gathers at the lowest bend and falls in its own time. The board receives it with a slow tap that feels like a patient nod. You drink again and let the gentle bitter clear the mouth of smoke. Crumbs of bread wait in a small bowl. You take one and hold it near the horn shade until it softens. It tastes of flour and salt and the mild oil that winter leaves in the kitchen air. You chew without hurry. The cup warms the fingers while wool lines your wrists. Down in the lane, someone shifts a shutter with wood on wood. Silence returns at once. A drop meets the cloth under the coil, and the slow tap turns small, softer through the fold. You check the knot that ties the ladder to its post. The rope there is harder with frost, the fibers glazed but sound. You rub them with a strip of cloth to dry the skin and press warmth into the lay. A thin smell of wet hemp rises and fades. You run your palm along the post. The wood is dry and rough, honest winter grain that helps a hand keep hold. You listen for any sharp sound. None comes. Only the cup, the brazier, the quiet coil, the slow tap that now and then marks the moment. You move back to the table and rest the cup beside the bowls. Ink sits quiet, dark and smooth. The thin skins you stirred away earlier have not returned. You fold the silk once, lay a cloth between, and set 2 stones so the edge learns its shape. The stones smell like clean dust. Your thumb brushes the bamboo slips where they dry on a bed of sand. The wood feels cool, the grain straight. You take a mouth of tea and taste the leaf more clearly now that the heat has softened your tongue. Behind you, a melt drop finds wood with a slow tap and keeps your count. You carry a small pot of warm water to the coil and pour a thin ribbon across the stiffest twist. Steam rises from rope and plank, and the smell turns green for a moment, like wet field cord lifted from a ditch in spring. You brush once more with the dry rag and hold the coil in your lap to see if the bend will ease. It does, just enough to be kind. You set it back on the cloth in a neat round. A drop forms where the last frost clings and lets go. The slow tap lands and fades. You tie the free end of the coil with a light hitch so it will not unwind when you carry it later. The knot sits small and flat. Your gloves have warmed now. The leather bends without protest. You sip from the cup and run your tongue along the rim, tasting clay and the faint ghost of ash. In the alley, the goat shifts in straw and noses for a better place. A thin hay smell rides the air and then disappears. The brazier hums in a low, steady way as coal settles. Another drop leaves the coil. The slow tap says the pause is not wasted. You check the horn shade and trim the wick the smallest amount so the light stays even. Oil gives a mild scent that fits the tea. The lamp does not hiss tonight. It holds a quiet line of flame, firm and kind. You wipe dust from the table with a folded cloth and feel the wood grain talk under your palm. The bowls in sand do not move. The sighting board at the rail keeps its pine scent, as if remembering hands from earlier hours. A melt drop misses the cloth and finds the plank. The slow tap answers. Then the room is still again. You let your shoulders lower and hold the cup between them as if it were a small stove. Warmth moves into your chest and down your arms. The night through the slit stays clean, cold, sharp. The tail you marked goes on with its slow walk, as if it does not mind you resting. Your lip finds a leaf on the surface, and you catch it with a finger and set it aside. It smells faint and green on your glove. Another drop forms. Another slow tap joins the count. No hurry, no push, only the gentlest measure of time. A dry smile moves through you when you think the cold keeps a stricter ledger than any clerk you have met, yet charges no fee for the reminder. You set the cup down and fold the cloth under the coil once more to find any last wet. The rope is no longer stiff. The fibers accept a press and hold the curve you give them. You lift the coil and hang it on a peg near the post so air can finish the work. A drop falls from the peg tip and clicks on the plank, barely there. A small cousin to the slow taps that kept you. You carry the cup to the brazier and pour a thin ring of water on the edge so ash will not float when you clean it later. The ring hisses and is done. A simple steam breath rises and disappears. You refill the cup with what remains and hold it again. The tea is weaker now, the bitter softer, the leaf almost sweet. You taste clay and a memory of smoke. You sit once more on the folded cloth, near but not over the brazier, and watch steam lift and thin. The coil on its peg shows clear again, frost gone. A final drop gathers and lets go. The slow tap lands and leaves the air as smooth as the cup's glazed rim. Tea warmth thins in your hands, and the coil you dried hangs easy on its peg. The brazier keeps a low glow. The air around the roof's slit stays clean and cold. You look toward the board, and then toward the dark yard, where frost lies along stone and rope. The night holds steady. Under your coat, a small wooden tally rides in your pocket. When your thumb finds a notch and turns it, the piece gives a quiet click, a small sound that ties the room to the road beyond the wall. You picture carts under the next full moon, wheels slow over hard ground, baskets tied with cloth and rope. Grain smell lifts warm and dry from sacks. Fish salt rides sharp from wet reed trays. Wool oil clings to hands and coats and settles close to the nose like winter grease. You see a line of lanterns along the market lane, horn shades dull and kind. The moon makes milk on the pile of turnips and a glaze on the water bowls. You hold that picture the way you hold the sight line, not tight, just sure. You take the tally from your pocket and turn it once in your palm. It is wood rubbed smooth by years, with shallow cuts along one edge, each cut a place for memory. The face tastes faintly of oil when the dry air touches the grain. You fold your cloth and lay the tally on it, then hold both inside your hand so the warmth returns to the wood. A click comes when you try the notch again, simple and soft. It is a sound that can live in a coat and still be heard in a field. From below, a sibling mutters and pulls a quilt. Wool makes a small rasp and then rests. A neighbor coughs behind a wall. Wood meets wood as a door closes. In the alley, the goat stands and settles again. Hay gives a sweet, dry smell that reaches the stair. Far off, a boat rope answers the tide with a low rub. You lean against the post and let those presences hold the edges of your mind while you thread the tally back into your pocket. The board waits. The moon to come waits. Your thumb moves. The notch gives one more quiet click. You slide a bamboo slip from the sandbed and set it near the lamp. The horn shade throws a small, warm circle. Ink in the thin bowl wakes with one slow stir of the brush. The scent is woody and calm. You lower your hand and mark a plain sign to follow later. Not a number, not a word. Only a house for the day you will tie to the market. Silk under your wrist feels cool and even. The fiber smells like clean straw. The brush tip lands with a small kiss, and the tip makes that soft tick at the end, like a lid closed without force. You fold the silk over a cloth, set a stone to keep it flat, and reach for the clay cup. The rim is smooth and warm. The tea has gone thin, but still carries leaf and a hint of ash from the brazier. You take the last mouth and taste gentle bitter and clay. Cold returns to your fingers as soon as the cup leaves them. You lean toward the stair. The coil on the peg holds its round. Water gone. The ladder rope is dry where you rubbed it. Frost on the rail feels like fine sand under your glove. You carry the thought of market through the air under the eaves and let it settle near the board. Grain bags, tied with short loops that you can loosen with a mitten on. Fish in shallow bowls, water dark, a clean salt that clears the nose even in cold. Wool rolls, grease shining like soft light, the smell thick but not harsh. Bread in baskets wrapped with cloth. Your hand lifts as if to weigh a loaf. Your mouth fills with the plain taste you know from home. The tally moves against your coat when you shift. The notch clicks once and stays. You think of how a month means little if a cart cannot read it. So you hold the sky marks in one hand and the market picture in the other, and you place them together without telling anyone you did so. The water jar near the post is cool. You pour a little into a bowl and wet a cloth to wipe the table edge of dust. Wood smells thin and sweet where the cloth warms it. Your glove feels stiff, but eases with work. The tally clicks again when your hip leans, and the sound gives you the next slow idea in a line of slow ideas. You walk down the ladder and into the yard to look over the grid by lamplight. Rope across stone, reeds in sand, corners squared, the ground page ready for hands. The well ring smells like iron and clean water. The gate beam smells of dry resin. You break the last heel of bread and eat it as you stand, flour and salt easing the mouth. The lamp by the door keeps a low flame. The tally sits in your pocket like a small clock that only you can hear. It clicks once as you move and then goes quiet again. You picture the full moon lifting clear, high enough to flood the lane in the market square. A rope from pole to pole will hold horn shades in a line. Cloth will hang to keep the wind from bowls. You see stones set to keep carts from the well lip. You see a table smooth with wood, a bowl of water, a brush, a clean cloth, a small pile of sand to dry a page if the night turns wet. Your coat rubs when you reach for the gate. Wool leaves a soft sound. The tally clicks under your hand as if to agree. You carry a short bundle from the shed. Spare rope, 2 wooden pegs, a folded cloth, the bamboo slips you marked. The bundle smells like hemp and dust and old smoke. Your fingers hold the weight the way they hold tools on the roof, without hurry. A rat under the floor changes beams with a dry scrape. A cartwheel in the far lane rolls once and is gone. You lean the bundle by the door and tie the strap so nothing will slide. The knot sits neat. The tally clicks again, then rests against your ribs. Back on the platform, the night has grown harder and cleaner, and the tail keeps its quiet walk along your marks. You set the bundle on the table and run your palm along the board edge. Pine rises in the nose, steady and mild. You fold the cloth you use to warm the rope and place it near the bowls. Water in the rinse bowl holds a thin ice. You break it with the brush handle and watch the clear skin fall. The lamp stays low, the flame small and sure. Your pocket holds the tally. Your thumb finds a notch and turns it. The click answers, small and exact, and the sound ties sky to cart, silk to sack, ink to a hand that will trade under a cold full moon. You sit and watch the slit toward the north and let the 2 worlds settle inside one coat. You can smell wool oil in memory and lamp oil in truth. You can taste bread ghost on the tongue and cold water in the throat. Wood grain under your palm is real and kind. Dust lies where it should in the lamp ring. The tail slides on. When you press your hand to your pocket, the tally meets your palm and gives one last quiet click, neat as a seed dropped into a wooden bowl. And the night holds that sound as it holds the stars. The click from the tally still rests against your ribs as you turn back to the board. Moon cold trims the rail and keeps the wood dry and honest under your palm. You pull a shallow bowl from the tray and spill a handful of little stones onto cloth. Pale shapes polished by river and thumb. The brazier holds a low ember. Faint ash smell drifts across the planks and warms the chest without flame. You lift each stone and feel its smooth chill settle into your fingers. Tonight is for slow math done with quiet hands. You spread the stones along the north line, one for each counted night, and let them roll to the marks you laid before. Pine scent rises from the board where your sleeve rubs the grain. The rope that ties the ladder to the post keeps its shape. Fibers hold their lay after the thaw you gave them. A bead line hangs from a nail, a cord threaded with round pieces of wood darkened by use. When you slide one bead to the side, it gives a soft tick, light as a seed on a tray. That tick will keep your time while your stones find their places. You set the first row for the nights that brought you here. Then fold the cloth under your wrist so the pine will not drink your heat. Dust lifts where the cloth passes and settles again. A small gray veil that harms nothing. The thin bowl of ink waits in its sand bed, but you are not writing yet. You are counting. Another bead glides and answers with a soft tick, then rests against its neighbor like a thought stored beside older thoughts. The air tastes clean and a little bitter. The tea from earlier still living on the tongue. You slide a stone to mark the last clear night. The surface is cool and smooth, but the board underneath is dry and faintly rough, a true winter mix that tells the skin exactly where it stands. The brazier breathes a tiny curl of warmth. Ash scent is sweet and old, like a coat pulled from a chest. Far below, a sibling mutters into wool, then quiet finds the house again. Out past the wall, a neighbor coughs once. You move one more bead along the cord. Soft tick. The math makes no hurry. You lift the water bowl and pour a thin ribbon into your cupped hand to clean dust from your fingers. Water smells like clay and winter. You rub both hands together over the cloth and feel the cold pull through the damp. Then the skin settles. Stones travel from bowl to board, one, then another. You set them in small arches that match the line of nights. The bead line slides and gives its soft tick each time you finish a span. The sound sits in the room without weight, yet it holds the shape of your work. Rope stretches from rail to post to keep the frame firm. You lean on it with a shoulder, and it answers with the low kindness of hemp. The goat in the alley turns in straw. A dry rustle comes and goes. The river's rope far off gives one lazy rub against wood and then forgets you. You take a small bite of bread you saved in your coat, and the taste comes plain. Flour, a little salt, a thread of smoke from the kitchen air. Your glove feels stiff at the knuckles. You flex the leather once and return to the stones. A bead moves. Soft tick. The month you chase grows clearer. You fold the silk record and place it under a stone so the edge will keep flat. Bamboo slips lie in sand, ink drying to a calm black. You look from slips to stones and back, making sure hand agrees with hand. The ash smell thickens just enough to remind you the brazier still holds a coal. You count inside, not numbers you say, only the line that lives under the tongue when work is right. A bead slides, soft tick, and your shoulder lowers, as if the sound drained a measure of winter from your bones. You set aside 4 stones, and then return one, testing a span against the marks you made when the tail first showed. You do not teach yourself. You only let the board and the sky speak the same simple word. Under the floor, a rat goes along a beam with a dry scrape, then pauses, then goes on. Frost at the rail is thin now, more glitter than grip. You draw from the bowl again and feel a new stone's cool weight, as smooth as an egg. You lay it in the gap that asked for it. The bead line moves to agree. Soft tick. The row reads even. A second row begins for the new run of nights. You brush grit from the board with the back of your hand. Pine grain wakes under your skin. Water from the rinse bowl carries a skin of ice. You crack it with the brush handle and set the pieces aside to melt on cloth. The room smells of oil and ash and wet wood in small, gentle layers. One stone rolls to its place and rests against its neighbor with the faintest kiss. You slide 2 beads this time, one after the other. Soft tick, soft tick. The sequence holds steady as wool held in a clean fold. You run a finger across the reed pointer to recall an angle, then return to the stones. A leap waits somewhere in the run. Not a trick, not a secret, only a place where days and fields ask for one more basket set down to level the load. You test a line by moving a single stone to the far notch, then bring it back. The board does not argue. The stones never quarrel. They only roll where you push them and stay where you leave them. Dry humor passes through you like a small wind. If only market carts behaved as well. A bead slips along the cord. Soft tick. The thought moves on. You open the pocket with the wooden tally and set it near the bead line. Wood meets wood with a quiet, homely sound. You turn one notch for the nights since your last bundle of ink signs. The tally keeps its own shy voice inside the coat. Here on the table, it is only a shape, warm under the thumb. The brazier sends a last small sigh up the eave. Ash smell fades back. You carry 3 stones from the bowl and build a short arc to match the moon you picture rising over the market lane. The beadline answers you. Soft tick. The arc fits the page. You lean close and press your palm flat to warm the board face where frost crept near the slit. Pine gives back a thin sweetness when skin wakes resin with heat. You set the leap month's trial in little piles, 4 and 5, then smooth them into one clean row. Cloth under your wrist guards the warmth you need for fine moves. You watch the rows as you would watch a quiet field from a ridge. Nothing grand, only order. The beadline slides. Soft tick. The cord grows light on one side and heavy on the other, and you feel the decision make itself in your hands. You lift the first row into the bowl and pour it out again to be sure your count holds when you restart. Stones slide against stone with a low river sound. Dust wakes and lies down. The lamp keeps its small, steady light. Its horn shade warms the knuckles when you reach. You take a sip from the water jar and taste clay and cold. You place each stone back with care, the way you would return seed to a sack after weighing. A bead moves with them. Soft tick. Your chest eases as the nights climb into their proper frame. You check the reed grid in your mind against the stones on the board. Rope over stone, sand leveled with a scoop, corners indexed to the post, little works that make big quiet. The river's rope answers the tide once, then ends its thought. A neighbor turns in the lane, shoe on wood, silence again. You add a small marker pebble for the turn that will come after the full moon, then slide a bead to match. Soft tick. The cord hangs balanced now, like a simple scale set to 0. You spread a clean cloth and collect stray grit with your palm, then brush it into the sand tray. The cloth smells of old soap, almost nothing, a good nothing that says the work belongs to the hands. You take the last piece of bread from a pocket fold and hold it near the lamp. It softens and tastes of flour and heat and a whisper of smoke. Stones shine a little where lamplight reaches them. Otherwise they rest like tiny moons gone to sleep. The bead line does not move, no tick. It feels right to let it hold still. You touch the leap row again and feel the idea settle, not as a number, not as a lesson, only as a shape of days that keeps market with moon and labor with weather. The cord is smooth where fingers have slid it for years. The beads feel round and slightly warm from your pass. You move one last bead to seal the run. Soft tick. The sound nests in the wood and disappears. You cover the stones with a folded cloth so frost will not find them if a draft sneaks in. You lean back from the board and press your hands to the grain to memorize the feel of the order you made. Pine lines meet skin lines. Both feel older than this night, and kinder. The ash scent has become a faint memory in the eve. Water in the bowl is quiet. The rope at the ladder holds fast. Below, the goat is still. Under the floor, the rat sleeps. Beyond the wall, the river keeps its slow pull. You let the bead line hang without motion, the cord soft in the dim. The last thing in the ear is the echo of those gentle ticks, each one a small, sure answer, while the months shift and the leap finds its home. The soft ticks on the cord grow quiet in the dim, and you let the beads rest where months have arranged themselves. A thin gray begins at the slit, not light, only a soft pale that tells you east is finding shape. You hold the rail and feel cold wood answer the hand. Pine smells faint from the board. Oil from the lamp is almost gone. You lift the cloth over your shoulder and carry the folded slips toward the stair. The house below is still. The east grows a little more pale, and you move down to meet it. Stone greets your boots with a dry chill that runs through the sole and stops. The yard keeps the order you made in the night. Reeds and sand, rope between stones, the ground page waiting. Air tastes like soot and snow, sharp and clean together, a winter mix that clears the mouth. Sparrows wake near the gate and stretch thin wires of sound across the morning. The notes are small and bright, not a shout, only a thread that holds the edges. You lean beside the brazier under the eaves and let the day begin around your hands. You set your bundle on a low bench and untie the thin cord. Silk scraps show a faint shine. Bamboo slips feel cool and dry, with grain that steadies the fingers. Ink on the wrong marks looks firm and black, but the errors sit there like pebbles in a shoe. You sort what must go. Lines that leaned wrong, a sign that landed rough, a stroke that met the wrong corner. You fold them in a small stack, neat and square. Frost on the rail brightens as the pail grows. Sparrow wires lift and settle. Lift and settle. You brush a thin circle of ash from the brazier rim and stir coal with an iron pick. Warmth answers in a low rise, not a flare, just a slow orange under gray. The smell is good and old. Wood turned to heat, memory made into work. The stone bowl that holds ash is heavy. You carry it to the flat place by the wall and set it down. Clay water from the well ring sits ready in a second bowl to guard the edge. A neighbor coughs once, wood meets wood, and a door rests. The sparrow wires draw a new line and then hang. You lower the first wrong page to the coal with a long stick and press one corner until the ink yields. Fire takes it like a mild eater, not greedy, only sure. A soft SS rises as the edge turns brown, then black, then folds in on itself. Ash lifts in a slow curl, clean as steam from rice on a winter noon, and drifts toward the wall. You watch to be certain the curl goes where you want. The air tastes more of soot now, but the taste is kind. The sparrow wires shimmer once above the gate and fall quiet. You add the next slips, not many, only what must go to clear the count. The fire writes its own plain answer through each line. Hairs on your wrist feel the mild heat, and then the cold again when you lean back. You hold the iron and settle each page so no wind can turn it. A coil of rope near the stair wears a white skin where frost holds on. A bead forms and falls from the lowest twist, then another. The drops meet stone with the softest ticks. The sparrows begin again, thin wires of sound that cross the yard and keep a gentle time. You carry the clay bowl and feed a small arc of water to the base of the brazier, only a guard, so no stray spark will travel. The water smells of the well, cool and metallic. You taste it on the air when steam brushes your lip. You set the bowl back and feel the weight in your arms, honest and simple. You brush ash that has fallen to the side into the waiting dish. The ash is light as powder and rises at the touch, then falls like new snow. The slow curl that lifted from the first page drifts down near your coat and leaves a gray hair on wool. Sparrow notes draw wire above your head and then loosen again. You take a piece of bread from a cloth at your belt and warm it near the rim. The crust softens. The smell is flour and heat and a thin thread of smoke that belongs to winter. You hold the bread in your palm and eat in small bites, salt quiet on the tongue. Your other hand holds the iron, watching a last corner turn to feathered ash. Frost on the gate beam melts to damp. Resin rises and makes a faint pine line in the nose. The birds answer the pail with new threads of sound, a small weaving that never pulls too tight. You lean to the ash bowl and stir once with a wooden spoon so nothing will hold a hot heart under gray. The sound is the soft rasp of powder against clay, a hush with weight. Ash lifts in a slow curl again, a ribbon that rises, loosens, and forgets its shape. You cup your hand and feel almost nothing there, only warmth and a hint of grit. Under the floor, a rat moves along a beam with a dry, tiny sound, then is gone. A boat rope far off answers the tide with one low rub, and then the river returns to its inward talk. You gather what remains of the wrong marks, a half strip, a narrow leg from a line, a reed tag that carried a test. You lay them in, not as punishment, only as clearing. The iron nudges them so they give themselves to the orange and then to ash. You lift a pinch of sand and scatter it on the rim so soot will not climb. The yard smells like smoke and damp clay and a little pine, and the mix sits in the chest without trouble. Sparrow wires cross once more and make a light fence between the stones and the pale east. You carry the ash bowl to the pit near the wall and kneel. Stone there is cold through the cloth under your knee. You tip the bowl and watch the gray drift down and join older gray. It falls in flakes and threads, most with no sound, a few with a dry kiss on stone. Water waits in the second bowl. You lift a ladle and draw a slow ring along the pit's edge to keep the settle clean. Steam rises in a lace and vanishes. You fold the cloth again and wipe the bowl's rim. The clay gives back the day's cold through your gloves. The sparrows sing thin wires of sound once more and make the work seem lighter. You turn to the ground page you made yesterday. Reed standing, rope a straight line between stones, sand leveled with a scoop. A dusting of ash from the night lies on one corner. You brush it with a soft broom and feel the bristles whisper across grit. The whisper is low and easy. It carries the same calm as the SSS of paper yielding to fire. You set 2 small stones back where a child's cat must have nudged them during sleep. The air tastes like soot and snow again. Sparrow threads loosen, and the lane begins to answer day. You carry the clean slips, the right ones, back to the bench and lay them on a cloth. Your palm smooths each face, so edges will rest with edges. You tie the bundle with thin rope and a square knot that sits flat and obedient. Wood of the bench holds a steady grain under your glove. It has kept work for years and does not ask you to say thank you. From inside the house, a sibling turns and sighs through wool. A shutter in the lane opens. Wood greets wood and stops. Sparrow wires lift into that sound, and then ease away again. You check the gate and hang a small board with a cloth thong so wind will not push it. The board will hold the new count when the ink is ready. Pine resin wakes where your thumb rubs the peg, sweet and sharp together. You face the east and watch gray thin to pale, then to a faint yellow that lives far off like a promise you do not need to claim. Frost on the stones loosens under your boots. You wait. The ash bowl at the wall cools. Its rim no longer bites at the hand. Sparrow wires stretch once more, the lightest fence in air, and tell you the hour has crossed. You return to the brazier and gather the last small curl that clung to the grate. It breaks to nothing between finger and thumb, leaving only a trace that smells like old paper and warm wood. You clean the rim with a folded cloth and shake the cloth over the pit. Gray falls, and the pit accepts it. You settle the iron pick on its hook, the spoon beside it, the bowl back to its place. Dust on the bench is thin. You brush it with the side of your hand, and it goes. Sparrow wires of sound grow busy near the roof, then pause, then begin again, a simple measure that holds you while the yard clears a path for the new count. The ash bowl cools by the wall, and the east holds that weak milk light that finds edges before it finds faces. You rinse your hands in a small bowl and feel cold water wake the skin, clay smell lifting plain and clean. The yard shows the order you kept in the night. Reeds and sand, rope drawn straight, stones square at the corners. A faint soot taste still lives in the air, mixed with the thin sweetness of pine from the board you plan to carry. Sparrows run their thin wires of sound along the gate beam and then fall quiet, as if they also wait for the day to take shape. You bring the new month board from the bench and set it across your knees. The wood is pine, light but true, the grain straight as a lane after snow. Ink on its face looks calm in the pale black turned to soft charcoal by the morning. You brush a veil of dust from the edge with a folded cloth and feel the cloth pick up the grit and keep it. Pine resin smells sweet where you thumb a knot and warm it. The scent sits under the nose like a quiet promise. The board is cold against your palm, but it rests there like a tool that knows your weight. You check the rope thong you tied to its back. The fibers hold their twist, stiff from dawn, a little rough where your knife cut them square. You pull once, careful, and the knot answers by tightening and staying flat. A small peg sits in your pocket, smooth as a seed. You turn it with your fingers until the cold leaves it. The gate post waits with its old hole. A place shaved clean last summer, now rimmed with frost. You lean the board on the wall and take a slow mouthful of water. It tastes of clay and a thin iron line, winter's way of saying the day will be honest. You lift the board and carry it toward the gate. The rope thong presses a line into your glove, and the wood's long face chills your sleeve. Pine resin wakes again under your thumb, as if the tree still remembers sun. Sparrows shift along the beam with small claws that sound like a brush across silk. From inside, a sibling turns on a mat and mutters into wool, then is quiet. Far down the lane, a neighbor coughs once. Wood meets wood as a shutter settles. You rest the lower edge of the board on a stone and breathe slow through your nose, so your chest keeps steady under the coat's weight. You hold the board against the post and watch the horizon line on its face meet the line you scribed on the gate last month. The fit is close. You slide the top a finger to the left and feel the cold post scrape the glove. Frost grains lift and fall. The smell there is resin and old smoke, a mix that belongs to winter gates. You ease the peg into the hole with a thumb, just far enough to stand. The wood is hard from cold. It asks for patience and a little force. You fit your small mallet in your palm and listen to the lane one more time. The first knock lands clean and neat. The sound is low and dry, like a stone meeting a block of wood. The second knock follows and seats the peg. Two neat knocks, a quiet motif for public order, and the board holds level under your hand. You run a finger along the top edge and it reads flat. Ink on the face looks even. Each line quiet. No gloss, no glare. The gate drinks a little of your warmth through the glove. The post is still colder than the board, yet the two agree in their work. Pine resin thickens at the rim of the hole, faint and sweet. You tie the lower thong to a side peg so wind will not lift the corner. Rope rubs the post with a small, steady sound as you draw it snug, not harsh, only the music of fiber on wood. The knot sits square. You press it down with a thumb, and it stays. A goat noses the alley straw and gives the lightest scrape against a plank. The smell of hay comes and goes. Under the floor, A rat crosses a beam with a dry line of sound and then becomes part of the boards again. Weak light finds the grain on the board's face and lays a pale wash across the ink, which remains calm. You step back and look, not to judge, only to let the sight rest in your eyes. The letters and strokes sit where they should, simple houses for the days to live in. The pine grain rises in faint bands, a quiet river you can feel with your eyes. The rope thong makes a straight shadow down the post. You brush a thin scatter of dust from the lower peg with your sleeve. Dust lifts and settles against the stone at your feet. The lane carries a thin smoke from a kitchen, and the taste of it adds to the morning the way salt adds to bread. You return to the bench for a small bowl of sand and a brush to clean the sill under the board. The brush bristles whisper across the stone, and the sand helps lift grit caught in the old carvings. The whisper is kind and low. You pour the sand back into the bowl and feel grit against clay, grain on grain, a dry, grainy music that means the work is careful. The board above you gives back a faint pine, as if pleased to be set right. The two neat knocks you already made seem to hang in the wood, stored like a memory you can find with your palm. You sit for a moment on the threshold stone and eat the first heel of bread. It is dry and a little sweet at the crust where yesterday's steam left its mark. Your tongue finds salt, and the cold air makes the crumb feel firm. You hold the heel in the cloth so your glove does not take grease, and you chew without hurry. The board faces the lane like a calm face. Sparrows run a new wire of sound above it, and then rest. Far off, a boat rope answers a slow pull with one low rub, and then leaves the river to itself. You swallow, take a mouth of water, and feel the day settle inside. You stand and press your palm flat against the board once more. The wood is colder than your hand and smooth as river stone. You feel the grain meet each line in a soft crossing, wood and ink greeting without quarrel. The resin at the peg hole smells sweet and small. A neighbor lifts a bolt and sets it down. The sound is wood on wood, measured and polite. Frost still clings to the top of the gate beam. You brush it with a cloth so it will not drip into the board's face when the sun finds it. The cloth comes away damp, and the damp smells clean and faintly green. You smooth the rope thong tails and tuck them under themselves, a small fold that keeps the ends from slapping when wind moves. The knot rests like a square stone at the corner, neat, plain, obedient. You lean and sight the face again. The ink lines hold their calm. No glare, no smear. Just the soft, even black that tells hands and carts what they need to know. Your mallet still holds chill where your skin met it. You slide it into your belt and feel the weight sit near the hip, like a steady friend. A second look tells you the board is level. The memory of those two neat knocks arrives again, light as a thought. You bring a lamp from the door and hang it low on a hook beneath the board. The horn shade throws a warm circle along the lower rail. Oil smells mild and good. The lamp does not need to speak. The flame is small in day. You brush the frame with your cloth one last time, rail, peg, thong, and the cloth gathers a faint coal dust, gray as early light. You fold it and store it under the bench where it can dry. A neighbor walks past the lane mouth and glances in, not to read, only to learn that order has arrived on time. The board accepts the glance without shine or show. You take the empty bowl back to the well ring and rinse it. Water moves over clay in a thin sheet that makes a quiet, clean sound. You taste the air again. Smoke, resin, stone, and let the mix sit on your tongue. The yard carries the night's work in its lines, and now the gate carries the morning's answer. You hang the bowl on its peg and watch a drip run along the rim and fall to the stone. It breaks with almost no sound and leaves a dark point that will fade. The board's edges hold dry and clean. The peg shows a small bright circle where the mallet found it, neat as a coin set into wood. You stand at last with both hands in your sleeves and simply watch. The new month waits on the pine face, each mark quiet, each space honest. The lane begins to hold its light. The first cart will come later, and boots will send a soft grit across this sill. For now you keep the gate, the board, the bowl, the lamp, the rope, all in one slow picture. The smell is pine resin and old smoke, with a line of cold stone beneath. Your palm touches the post and finds it dry, steady, winter hard. The echo of those two neat knocks lingers where wood meets wood, a small order held in grain, while the ink stays calm in the weak morning light. Evening folds back into the lane you crossed this morning, and the board on your gate keeps its calm face in the thin dark. Pine resin sits sweet in the cold. The wood under your palm is dry and sure where you touch it in passing. The air is still, clear enough to taste stone and old smoke at once. Your coat carries a clean smoke smell from the brazier, quiet and good. Far down the lane, a bell hums one note and holds it, a low thread laid across the night. Dust lies soft on the sill where boots will come. You brush it with your sleeve and feel the grain of wood answer. You ease the latch and enter the yard. Rope across the corner peg keeps the gate from swinging, and the fibers feel stiff but sound as you retie the small loop. The lamp under the eaves shows a faint coal through its horn shade, not a flame, only a warm core. A shallow bowl near the well ring carries a thin skin. You press it with a finger, and the ice folds with a soft crack. Clay smelled clean as new water. Your coat warms a little at the shoulders as you move. The smoke smell lifts again, not sharp, only a mark of home. The bell's one note drifts through the alley mouth and lingers. You carry your bundle to the stair and test the rung with a palm. Wood stays dry, winter hard, the grain rough in an honest way. A cloth wrap holds your papers and slips. The knot you tied earlier loosens without fight. The ladder rope keeps quiet in this still air. You lift the lamp, low and steady, and climb with a slow rhythm the planks understand. Frost lives along the rail in a fine seam like sifted sand, bright where the sky finds it. The bell hum reaches the roof a little thinner now. Still one note. Still true. On the platform you lean to the slit and let your eyes read the north seam. The tail you have followed is there, pale and short, no longer a trail that fills the eye, only a thin chalk across deep cloth. Pine rises from the siding board when your sleeve brushes it. The smell is sweet as a cupboard opened after long snow. Water in the rinse bowl holds a new skin. You break it with the brush handle and watch clear shards sink, clay cold and clean. Your fingers tell the story of the wood under them. Straight grain, steady pins, no shift in the frame. The night answers with more stillness. You set a small sheet on the table and weigh 2 corners with smooth stones. The ink in the thin bowl moves when you stir once with the back of the brush. The scent is woody and calm. You lower the brush and let the line land. The tip gives a tiny kiss and a soft tick at the end. The mark is small, the kind that does not lift its head. You add a short leg from the margin, a place to meet the grid at dawn. Cloth under your wrist holds what warmth you give it, and the pine beneath stays kind. The bell far down the lane hums the same note as before, and the sound settles the page as if it could weigh ink. You stand for a little and look toward the city roofs. Windows show low fire behind paper. That warm color has a taste of bread and old tea in a mind that knows it well. Wool oil will hang in those rooms and keep hands soft. Bowls will steam and give off a thin salt that belongs to winter fish. Your new month sits steady inside those rooms already, not as a thought, but as a plan. Market day and rest day, counting nights and clean corners. The board on your gate holds the same calm face for any eyes that pass. The bell's one note hums on, a low beam across houses and lanes. You bring out the little stones and spread them across the board once more, not to puzzle, only to feel the slow math under the hand. Each stone is cold and smooth, a river finish that keeps your touch gentle. You fold a cloth and brush a scatter of dust from the far edge. Dust rises and falls like quiet snow and leaves the wood clean. The bead cord you used last night hangs still from its nail, light against the post. You slide one bead a finger's width, and it gives a soft tick. Then you let it be. The bell hum finds the rail and holds there, faint and even. You eat the small heel of bread you saved in your coat. It tastes dry and a little salty. The cold makes the crumb firm and the crust sweet. You drink from the gourd, and the water carries clay and a line of iron that suits the hour. Sand in the tray holds the ink bowls steady. When you nudge one, it answers with a dry whisper that disappears at once. You wipe your mouth with the back of your glove and smell the clean smoke in the wool again, a good winter smell that keeps the chest calm. The bell's one note runs through your quiet chewing and rests at the edges of your hearing like a smooth stone in water. You fold the sheets, silk over cloth, and bind them with a short rope so corners will not travel. The knot sits square and low. You set the brush on its stand and wash the hairs in the bowl. A faint cloud folds into the water and clears. Wood of the table carries your palm without complaint. The varnish has worn to a soft shine from years of work. You lower the lamp wick and shade it so the coal will last while you close the place. Dust on the stand is thin and gray. You brush it into your hand and let it fall into the sand tray. The bell hum holds and then thins as if the lane itself has taken a long, slow swallow of night. You walk the rail once more and feel the pine with your fingers, pin by pin. Rope from ladder to post sits firm. You press the knot, and it holds like a small stone. You look through the slit, and the tail is fainter still, a pale knot with hardly any train. You are not sad. Work turns. That is its nature. You gather the stones back to their bowl and cover them with cloth so frost will not take them in your absence. The rinse water grays as it settles. You carry it to the edge and pour it onto the outer board where it can freeze and trouble no one. The bell sends its one note again, softer than before, and you carry that sound down the first rung. In the yard, the ground you swept yesterday holds its clean. Rope casts a simple shadow across stone. The gateboard waits, ink calm in the weak starlight. You lean and touch the peghead with your thumb. The wood is cold and smooth, and the mallet's mark you made at dawn feels right. A neighbor coughs in the lane. A shutter moves and rests. Far off, a boat rope answers the river with a single low rub and then falls quiet. You stand in the middle of your own stones and let the coat's clean smoke smell stand with you. You hang the lamp on its hook by the door and lay your bundle on the bench. Cloth on wood, wood on stone, each contact gentle, each weight known. You close the bowl lids, coil the thin rope, fold the spare cloth, tie the strap, and leave the sand level in the tray for morning. The air remains still. Frost makes a weak rim along the well lip. You taste a last hint of ash in the cold, and a ghost of bread on the tongue. The bell far down the lane hums its single note one more time, soft as a seal on a page. You hold the gate post and feel its dry grain. The note fades into wood and stone, and the new month sits steady inside warm homes